For tuning in to yet another episode in which I talk about issues related to public transportation. What I'm going to talk about today, as I talked about on Tuesday, but then the recording cut out, is I'm going to talk about the Northeast Corridor for high-speed rail. But I'm going to talk about. Usually, I talk about issues related to. Usually, I talk about issues related to. Related to what's it called? Related to the timetable, and instead, this is going to be about. This is going to be about infrastructure. So, this means actually showing you guys some things. This is only north of New York, and I hope to also do some south of New York this time. On Tuesday we didn't, but on Tuesday, this was less prepared. So we're going to breeze through certain things. So the point here is to evaluate major capital spending on the Northeast Corridor. The timetable is the final product, or rather, the final product needs to be the actual service, but the timetable is how the passengers interact with the service. The timetable says things like New York to Boston, I don't know, an hour 30 is incredibly aggressive, an hour 45 is, I don't know, average aggressive, 2 hours would be conservative, let's call it. And it's currently, I think, just short of 4 hours. So, we're talking about big improvements. New York to DC is a little less than 3 hours on the incredibly expensive trains, and a little more than 3 hours on the expensive but not incredibly expensive trains. But and again, probably about the same times. Let's do far future, just because I want to see what it's like with booking at least somewhat in advance. Select my trip. Yeah, okay. So slightly less than 4 hours on the most expensive trains, where you might be able to snag a $100 fare, but 200-ish is more common. Fuck your multiple trains for 9 hours. You can get some regional trains that are about 100. They're a little less than 100. And they're a little more than 4 hours. This is 360 kilometers. To put things in perspective, at average fares on Deutsche Bahn, which are about 12 cents per kilometer, 43 euros. Average, not lowest. So the question is how to evaluate which capital projects. The spending is not the timetable, or rather, my spending is the timetable. As someone doing this, I don't know what to call it, guerrilla planning? I don't want to call it guerrilla. I work for Marin. I don't work for Al-Qaeda or something. Shadow planning, maybe? The shadow is in shadow, shadow not as in shadowy, shadow is in like the shadow cabinet in a parliamentary system, where there's like a shadow foreign minister, a shadow finance minister, and so on. But the actual physical budgets and mostly the infrastructure construction. So the point is to evaluate which of these projects are the most efficacious on matters like reliability, on matters like timetable stability, but also just raw increases in speed. So let's breeze through north to south. Boston to Providence requires, to a good approximation, zero capital spending. Oh yeah. Westminster has shadows, but so Israel sometimes has shadows. I don't think they do it anymore, but I think Ehud Barak was experimenting with that in the first Netanyahu government in the 90s. I'm actually kind of surprised that Israel is not doing it more commonly, or that in general, countries where they have stable blocks, like the Nordic countries, which are pretty stable left block versus right block system. Obviously, in the Netherlands, there wouldn't be a shadow system because, right now in the Netherlands, right, you have three parties, each of which might come first, right? There's PvdA GroenLinks, there is VVD, there is, what's the other one? What's on second party? New Social Contract. I doubt there's going to be all three in a grand coalition, so there's going to be probably, what, two of them? Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. But nobody's going to put them in a coalition, right? Because the left is never going to go into coalition with them, and then New Social Contract and VVD by themselves almost have a majority. They like pick, I don't know, SEDA, not SEDA, I don't know how to pronounce that word, SEDA, and D66, and that puts them over. They don't need PVV, right? But anyway, yeah, so in a place where it's much more fluid, like the Netherlands or Belgium, I get it, but I'm actually kind of surprised that, the thing about it, they don't use that system in Sweden, for example, or in Finland, or in Israel. But anyway, yeah, NSC prefers to go right, but NSC, so what I'm expecting is VVD plus NSC, and then together they don't need PVV. I mean, they can't bring PVV. It's probably going to end up like in Sweden, where as soon as that's announced, the center-left gets like 35% of the polls. But anyway, so point is, Boston to Providence needs somewhere between 0 and basically 0 infra. So 0 is a little bit glib because the commuter trains have to be electrified. The commuter trains have to be electrified because they are otherwise going to get in the way of the intercity trains. Also, it's insane that the line is not already electrified. There's a... am I going to be able to find it? Not without showing you guys the transit matter slide. There's a... no, not Del Postillon. I love Del Postillon, but it's all I'm looking for. There's a... where there's a, so I found a, I mean, it is American, but the point is there's a German study that I just found about electrification, different ways of electrifying, so overhead wire versus hydrogen versus batteries. It's kind of negative on hydrogen because the tech turns out to not be very good. And what it finds is that it depends on what proportion of the line is already electrified, how easy the electrification is, and in normal conditions, you want to wire when you run trains every half hour or more often, where a train is something like 2 cars, maybe 3 cars. It's not a long train. Now, if you're running, now American commuter lines run that often with much longer trains at rush hour, and the electrification costs are driven, sorry, not the electrification benefits are driven by the peak because it's saving on rolling stock acquisition costs. And certain operating costs that are fairly insensitive to how often the train is run. So, yeah, I mean, this is something like 4 or 5 long trains per hour, just wired. I mean, it's already wired, just be a little completionist. The siding tracks at Alba are unwired, the Pawtucket Yard is unwired. I think that's it. Just wire, and by EMUs. Wire the branch of Stoughton, wire everything, honestly. So that's capital investment, but that's, first of all, not a lot of money because practically all of it is already electrified. Second, not really Amtrak's responsibility, to be honest. Third, something that Massachusetts is kind of trying to do, they're just bad at it. Literally the only deviation from the existing track map is here. It's denoted as radius 594. This is not a circular curve. This is 3 curves, of which the middle has a tighter radius, I think 400 something. But because it's a bunch of short curves, because it's literally 3 curves in a trench coat, you can straighten them to a single curve within right-of-way with intermediate radius, but the speed is determined by the tightest radius. So this lets you squeeze, I think, like 20 kilometers an hour more out of this or something like that. So but this is all electronics, maybe not this, but the electrification on as far as concrete goes and the electronics for concrete Swiss specs in, it's basically zero concrete. There's basically zero concrete. You do need to actually add some concrete, which is put some bypass tracks to let intercities overtake regionals. But again, as far as speed goes, it doesn't really matter. And essentially, what it means is that it probably is a state project in exchange for which the state gets the use of the intercities as express trains for regional purposes. South of Providence, I haven't looked as closely, but I have a track chart. You might need to do something like this at some of the curves here. Maybe straighten some of the curves a little bit. I'm not sure. I doubt it. But assume that anything up to Kingston is basically good, and if it is not basically good, you don't spend more than a couple tens of millions on it. How does this German article's electrification standards balance with my praise of? First of all, Are Austria and Denmark fully electrified? I know Switzerland is fully electrified and has been since the war, but I thought Denmark was leaving some things unwired. So how does my praise balance? So my praise is that what they're saying is that you should electrify everything that runs at least a train every half hour off peak if it's a shortboy train. What I would say is, why the hell does the railway even exist? Ooh, cool! The question is, why does the railway even exist if they can't even run a two-car train every half hour? The other thing that I would say is that if you're close to 100%, then you gain benefits from going full. These benefits of going full 100% are reduced, to be very clear, if it's batteries and not diesel, but they're not eliminated because the battery train is still a battery train when it's under wire. It's not as stupid as diesel under catenary, but it is a thing. Because you need to keep locals happy. Okay, but who the hell rides a line that has less than a train every half hour if it's a two-car train? I mean, I don't mean in the sense that it's bad service. Hi, Tarantar. I don't mean to. Great, let's amend something. Hi, Tyrannosaur. Sorry, the chat did better like this. Kids and elderly women plus railway otaku. So here we call this Green Party voters. Judging by the state of German politics right now, you negatively need to satisfy them, and this is really sad, but it is what it is. And my point is not that this is, by the way, this is bad service and therefore you should cut it. My point is that definitionally, if these are tiny trains and they don't run very often, you're not providing enough capacity, and therefore it's physically impossible that there's a lot of ridership in this, if that makes sense. Maybe in Japan there's this kind of mentality that groups that have way too much prestige relative to their contribution to society ride these local trains. In Germany, some people believe that, but it's actually not true because the groups in question drive. No, this is a thing where there's kind of view here in the Green Party that people kind of look askance at trains that people actually use because the people who then use them are not just Green Party voters. There's kind of mentality that high-speed trains, yeah, they're nice, but FDP voters ride them as well, and FDP is the enemy. And yes, FDP is also in the coalition. This does not, the mind boggles at how petty the party that I keep voting for is. Oh, rural voters, the core of the LDP. Yeah, here rural voters are, I don't think they're anybody's core. The kind of old-timey thing would be industrial workers in northwest Germany, but they don't think ride the regional trains. And the localities around the riders, whatever. It's mostly people who sue the government. But anyway, in the US it doesn't really matter because in the US these lines just don't run any passenger service. Like the United States just does not have regional rail. And I don't mean regional rail in the sense of commuter rail, but better. I mean regional rail in the sense of like United Bond, which does not exist. I mean, yeah, the Boston to Providence line is the busiest in the Boston area, but I don't. I think maybe. Do you think which line that Boston actually runs service on has the lowest peak frequency? I think it's actually the Fairmount line. It's every 45 minutes peak, which itself is stupid. It should be every 15. But these are still long wait trains. So we're not talking 4 or 5 or 6 cars an hour. We're talking 12-ish, 10, 11, 12. Maybe these, maybe Greenbush is the one that's infrequent and actually doesn't need to be frequent, but still every half hour long train. It's still like several times what is the minimum in Germany. And part of it piggybacks on the trunk that needs to be electrified for other lines. So anyway, but as far as infrastructure goes and the level of concrete, like we're good basically up until here. This is a bypass. It's a long bypass. I posted it at 5 billion on Tuesday, which was not recorded. So let me explain very briefly. This is about 125. So you can see on the right, it's 125 kilometers. Might be a little bit different, but only a little bit because the I-95 right away is basically the only available option. And there are deviations. So you need to get from I-95 to the Legacy line. This is one option. I think the official option is to do it here. There are other, I think I used to draw it much farther north like this. There are so many different options that it means that you should assume the land acquisition costs are trivial, because if someone complains, there are like 4 different options. For example, I think people here are being NIMBY in Charlestown, but I think this is still within its jurisdiction, so they're complaining about this. So if they complain, either explain to them that it's far or move. Again, not that big of a deal. Very few take-ins. There are some ridges here, but so I'm gonna draw the. Actually, I don't need to even draw. I can just do show elevation profile. So we start here, and then we transition up to here. You can see that. So they say that max slope is technically up to negative 5.5%, but it's not real. Like, I mean, you go. The point is that this is 51 meters, and then it drops pretty abruptly, but it's a very short thing, so it's gonna get cut and filled. Like same here. I mean, if there's a little bit of a what to call it, a little bit of a valley here, then it's gonna get cut and filled. It's like a couple of meters extra, and so this is from what, 51, and then this is 25, and there's a river here. So the river's gonna get bridged. This is at the end of the day 30 meters over about a kilometer. Yeah, that's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. And so civil infrastructure is not going to be complex. Then you have I-95, where again, civil infrastructure is generally not complex. Occasionally it's going to be annoying when you need to cross over the highway. It needs to happen a couple times, but it's a short viaduct, not a big deal. This might be an annoying fight, because I think this is actually a currently in use park. But there are other options to where to go. Like you can go to the south. So what I'm drawing is one of a couple of options, and all of these are second order. This is really complex, the river crossing, but thankfully it can happen parallel with the highway decks, and it's not on any existing line, so construction is much easier to stage. This is, I think, 40 units to take. I think it's another 40 units that are not going to be expensive, because New London is poor as hell. New London is the 5th poorest town in Connecticut. This is something we figured out on Tuesday. Oh, hi, Hikoki. You didn't miss much because we were recapping yesterday. Not yesterday, yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, so New London needs some takings, but not going to be terribly expensive. Is this in Mystic? Yeah, this is all Mystic. So this would be Mystic. Mystic is not. Wait, why is Mystic? Is Mystic just not a town? Is it called Stonington? Yeah, Mystic is in Stonington, right? Mystic. A village. Yeah, it's in Groton and Stonington. Stonington, wealthy. Groton. Did I just miss Groton? Groton, somewhere in the middle. And I think the situation in New England is always the town centers are the poorest, so poor, rich, I guess. That, I mean, it's like 40 even times these property values are going to be on. This is one way to do the takings. You mostly want to be non-residential, so this is not actually very good at this. You might want to flip to the other side of the highway just to be able to do the takings, not here, but here. This is a guy with, I mean, this is a mall, but it's also run by someone with an MBA. This is a synagogue. This is run by someone who I hope does not have an MBA. And you can see it done at a mega church, but this is not a mega church. Also, people at mega churches probably don't go away for money as much. Here, again, a bunch of options. Probably want to go farther south and not farther north, given how residential this is and how non-residential this is. But anyway, it's 125 kilometers. There's, yeah, river crossing. Some takings here, this is part of the marina, which people are going to be pissed about, but intact marina, expandable. Old Lime's here, the current alternative. In the Northeast Corridor project does have some idea for how to do this bypass, and I think it's going south of the freeway here, not north, so closer to Old Lime, which people here are pissed about. So yeah, it's going to annoy NIMBYs, but less than the existing plan, which is so inactive that they're replacing this bridge in place rather than building this, which is stupid. But at the end of the day, it's two bridges over rivers. The third bridge that sometimes discussed as an important bridge replaces this, but this is an inlet more than anything, and here it's not anything. Plus a bridge over the Quinnipiac. So the options to actually check would be do this as a drew. Again, minor changes, but the minor changes are not going to matter very much for first order costs or the timetable. What is going to matter is, do you do this bridge and trash some of the industrial waterfront of New Haven, or do you stay on the old line up until here? Like, this is a couple more kilometers, this is a curve. How big of a curve? Well, the change in azimuth is such that we can actually just do it this way and it will not be too stupid. This looks like it almost fits, so let's do this maybe. Yeah, this looks like it fits. So it's about 940 meters. So if you want to be very wild, it is 160 kilometers an hour. If you want to be less wild, there may be freight here, I'm not sure. Then maybe times, not even 2, well, maybe just 2 actually, like this. Then it's 150 something. I mean, okay, but here it would be 200 from here. So I think this is a couple more minutes, like 2 more minutes or something like that. Because it's, what's the length here? I checked, I think, I may have done this on camera. If not, they did it on, so it's 5.5 kilometers up to this road intersection. And then we start from here, and again, this also stays slow for the first 2 kilometers, which matters. And then up until this, it is 9.7. It's about 4 more kilometers at, I don't know, in theory 160, but more like 120 because this is slow. So it's like 2 extra minutes. Yeah. Yeah, New Haven's, so bear in mind, Borners, New Haven is not rich. Oxbridge are rich. This is, again, it's a New Englandism. where, or maybe a northeastism, where the kind of stereotype that you've heard of the United States, it's a poor city center, inner city, surrounded by rich suburbs. There are lots of exceptions to this, but in New England, this holds to the point that even rich city centers, by which I mean Stamford, are less. You can visibly see how they're less wealthy. Like, this is Stamford. It's wealthy, but less wealthy than immediate suburbs around it, like Greenwich, Darien, and New and same with this: Stamford, Greenwich, Darien, New Okay, literally the three richest in Connecticut. And Stamford is not that at all. Again, Stamford not poor, but Stamford is 38, not top 3. New Haven might actually be at the bottom. Yeah, New Haven is 7th from the bottom. Hartford and Bridgeport are cities. New London's a city. Waterbury is a city. I don't know if Wyndham is. I don't know to what extent New Britain is visibly urban. It is not visibly, it's just urban. I don't know. But no, New Haven is poor, and this is a problem. Again, in New England, where you have where you have these commuter towns where, yeah, you would expect, but Yale faculty very rarely live in New Haven. The students do, but New Haven has, but the people who have the high-end jobs in New Haven, which is mostly Yale and Yale Medical, they don't usually live within the jurisdiction of New Haven. The capital is the poorest city in Connecticut, yes. The capital was historically the largest city before there was a shift toward more New York-oriented places. Like, Stanford is still smaller, but Bridgeport has a larger population than Hartford. I think Hartford's number 2. So yeah, it's a city, so industrial city because 19th century industrial history in New England, and therefore white flight. And so it's rather poor. And yeah, also New England, because New England very famously had very strong local government early, High Alexis de Tocqueville, and also boo to every British translation that translated commune as township. It is not called a township, it is called a town. If you hear someone talk about New England townships, know that they don't get it direct from New England, they get it from British translations of, they get it from, you can do it a little bit now with Google Translate, but it used to be much funnier with the Babelfish, where you would put a sentence in English and you would run it through a bunch of languages. This is literally what it means to call it a township. People are translating commune. Commune was used to translate town. At any rate, strong local governance early on, leading to limited annexation. Not zero annexation, but limited annexation, culminating in Brookline. We can just go through here and it'll give the link. I don't need the demographics. I know it's wealthy. Housing and zoning history. Interesting. It's a little farther south. Yeah, the Boston-Brooklyn annexation debate of 1873 is one I want to look at. And compared with Philadelphia, like Boston and Philadelphia are not exactly the same, but they're pretty similar in that kind of history. And Philadelphia annexed much more easily. Philadelphia was also poor, but like white flight was not a New England thing. Just think that tiny cities is a New England thing. So why doesn't New Haven upzone like Newark or Buffalo? I don't know, is the answer. I can bug Sandy Johnston, and ask him, and he might know. Like bear in mind, there's a lot. Like New Haven is poor, but it's rich in geopolitics because they get money from Yale or from Yale adjacent things because good citizenship. So it doesn't have the politics of let's call it normal, very poor American inner city. It has the politics of a little bit of that, but also a lot of college town, even richer college towns. That might be it. So anyway, it's 125 kilometers. A couple things are hard, by which I mean bridge that. So this bridge costs, I think, 500. But it's much, and it was 500 like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But this is a much the key bridge, but this is a much narrower deck than this. Wouldn't need as much connection to all these exits too. It would need an overpass here, so it's not trivial, but still, this is triple digit millions, but low triple digits most likely. I'm guessing same here. Let's call it a billion, maybe a billion and a half will through, and then the rest 30 a kilometer. Yeah, it's 5. And I don't know how much that saves because I'm probably not going to actually compute the timetable with the legacy line, because the legacy line is very slow. It's very curvy, and I can't measure every curve because I don't have a good track map. I don't have, but it's something that annoys me. I don't have track maps anywhere Amtrak owns, except where MBTA and Amtrak overlap here. So Amtrak owns in Rhode Island, the MBTA owns in Massachusetts. They have track maps down to as far as the MBTA runs, which is Wickford Junction, but I don't have for anything else on Amtrak. This is owned by Metro North. I don't have this section which is owned by Amtrak. We have SEPTA maps, but the SEPTA maps don't include anything owned by Amtrak, sadly. But because it's not really an option to stay on a really curvy main line, and then the very curvy, main line, let's call it the legacy line or the shoreline, I don't think it matters. It's just 5 billion that you have to spend. It's fine. Here it's the more interesting thing. There are, I keep forgetting the number, I believe it's 6 right-of-way deviations, which have a bunch of options, and I didn't necessarily draw the best ones, so I'm going to verbally say what the options are. So from north to south, Milford, this is a pretty tight curve. Thanks to the quadrant, we can even document. Is it documents or document? Document. So this is the link that I keep using, which the court posted in my Discord, maybe last month. And it has the entirety of Metro North, which includes the New Haven line. So, yeah. If you want to read how it works, this is the direction of the curve. We can just figure out through parity which is which. It doesn't matter very much unless there's an S. Grades, they basically never matter. And this is Kent in inches. So Milford is 3 degrees. One degree is 1746 meters. Degrees of curvature are a measure of curvature. So radius of curvature is 1 divided by curvature. So 3 degrees means this is the radius, 582, which if you're incredibly aggressive, like limit values and everything, is 129 kilometers an hour, which is shit. If you're less aggressive, then it is... This is still, by the way, when 2.07 is the highest lateral acceleration rate in the horizontal plane that I've seen on a high-speed train. It's between Köln and Frankfurt on the ICE line. It's a crazy limit value. I guess you can go higher if you tilt, like summation constant, but don't assume tilt. So what is this? This is 125 kilometers an hour. Yeah, that's shit. So this needs to do something else. Now this curve, for example, is fine. This is 1 degree 15 minutes. So it's like this, and then same values. Limit value that's not insane is 190 something, which is not great on an intercity train, but it's not 120, 190. So you need to do something about this curve. This is this curve. And so you can't really eat, and this is annoying because usually they don't have multifamily near stations in Connecticut, but here they do. So quite a lot of it. So the curve includes the station, is the annoying thing. And there's condo development here, for example. So what I drew is a weird thing where you kind of move things around, and then you move the station, which is going to be expensive, and then you trash this. But this is multifamily. Yeah, this is something I'm going to need to redraw. And I'm actually going to try redrawing it right now on camera. So, New York, New Haven. So, because I am paranoid, I'm going to do copy paste. New York, New Haven. Rename New York, New Haven 1, and I'm going to call this one New York, New Haven 2. And New York, New Haven 2 will not trash Milford as much. Instead, what we're going to do is, we're not going to do show elevation profile, we're going to do properties, because I need to remember how to actually use Google Earth. This is going to be a little annoying because you can't do, like, you can drag things in Google Earth when you do properties. So, because if you do, this is what happens if you drag. So, I'm going to hit cancel just to, so what you need to do is probably go around on I-95, which is going to make the line a little bit longer, but everything you're trashing is going to be, or almost everything you're trashing is going to be not residential. So these are roadside hotels, which means person who has an MBA and will go away for money, and also importantly, very little cultural value to these. So I believe you can do this. You can do either side of the freeway. Let's do the side that doesn't require too many viaducts. I mean, you still need to do to viaduct over, I guess, the diamond crossing, so you might not be gaining that much. You do this. This is, when I tested it, it looked like a radius 1700 meter curve. We're gonna check this and see what it's like. And yeah, this. And then this is non-residential, and you can try to make sure that the curves here, what's getting trashed is what's getting trashed is you pick a cheap hotel essentially, and there might even be multiple options in case one owner has opinions about how much they want to go away. So let's do this maybe, and take Lowe's Home Improvement as an acceptable loss. Again, just to make it clear when I use this kind of language, the owners are getting fully compensated. Like, it's not a law, let's take people's property just to show that we're just for the evils. Which, you'll be surprised how many libertarians think that any kind of eminent domain is, like, immoral. Unless you maybe portray it in Georgist values, because Georgism, not because they care about Georgism, they don't, but because there's been a lot of conflict between Georgists and Marxists, and the libertarians don't really have opinions except they don't like socialism, and they don't like that people who are more working class or poorer than they are get any kind of dignity, because the Georgist movement is kind of bourgeois coded. They are okay with it, and at scale they're going to be against it, but I won't say thankfully we don't need to care what the libertarians think, but I live in Germany, we have FDP in the government. Okay, so it's not, so you get maybe 1550 on this. What's 1550? 1550 is, this would be a bypass, because you're not going to put a commuter rail station here. So you can go nuts on everything, and that's what, 210? 210 is not bad. You don't think it's worth trying to squeeze to 20? Okay, but this means that we do need to make sure that the other curves are compatible with it, because it'd be silly otherwise. So we want this curve to be right. Is it? It looks like it is. And then from here, this is going to be a wider curve, but that's okay. You can always have wider curves in the minimum. So you do this and this. And then what is it like on this side? Issue is that hewing to the freeway here might be a problem, and the reason is that this looks like it might be a wetland. If it is a wetland, things are bad because you might need to transition here and go entirely on this side. Not the worst, because this is still a crossing of the freeway, so you're not saving that much, but it is going to be annoying here. I guess I guess you might at least be able to go here, and this might save all the residential takings here. But still, this is stuff that will go away easily, but you still need to pay for it. Again, we're talking about paying full market rate. Like, we're not talking about taking people's property uncompensated. This is no. So you certainly can put tangent circles, and it's not going to be a big deal. I imagine there might be S-curves here, but given how small these curves are, they might just be over radius, and so we might not need, and so you might not need full super elevation. It takes 3 seconds to reverse a curve. So if this design speed is 210, then it's 175 meters, which means what? This might be too much. Likewise here in the middle of this. Again, you can always respond by reducing super elevation and making the curves wider, which might actually be viable here given how much space there is, or shaving a little here. Like, if the wetlands are here and not here, we're good, because then you can go straight like this. So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna assert ex recto that the wetlands are the clearing, are only the clearing, and therefore this is a viable alignment. And if it is not, then it's annoying, and is also not the most annoying deviation from the right of way that is necessary here. So yeah, you do something like this. Deviation number 1. This might be a curve straightening. This is kind of a tight curve. You can straighten if you'd like. It saves a little bit of time. What's so exceptionally bad about impacting wetlands compared to forests? I believe wetlands are where the biodiversity hotspots are, and not forests. But this might be something specific to American environmental. I'm not going to say movement, because it's not exactly a movement thing, but usually, at least in the United States, when people talk about impacts to ecosystems, at least in the eastern US, the western is desert, so it's different, people usually worry about wetlands, not forests. I think in Germany it's different. People worry about forests, but also the forests in Germany are not old growth, they're pretty recent, so they're not actually significant biospheres. Can you tell I'm not that fond of the party that I keep voting for, because the alternative is voting for SPD, which literally just signed a coalition agreement in Hessen that includes a section banning gender-neutral language. Like in German, the German language is gendered, so for example, a driver is Fahrer, but that's a masculine word, so if you want to say a female driver, you say Fahrerin. So there's a trick of saying Fahrer / Fahrerin, and it's something like Fahrer, and then you do either asterisk in, or you capitalize in. It's called the Binnen form. By the way, fun fact, you may have seen Sid walk in the background. First conversation I had with Sid was about gender-neutral language in German. This was years before I moved here. We talk about gender-neutral language. So, and apparently some conservatives dislike it so much that Sadhu actually insists on banning this language in official documents for the purity of the German language. About non-existent bats and newts. I like bats. Single right of way. Yeah, it's going to be a table of specific travel times for certain amounts of money, where each section is going to be evaluated. So, Stamford to New Haven, everything is fungible because the trains are not going to stop in the middle. So you just pick the cheapest interventions per minute saved. So this is one such intervention. Another, I'm not even going to count straightening this. If you want to know what this is the previous page, not the next page. It is, I think, this curve. So 2 degrees. Yeah, it's past Stratford, so 2 degrees. Which is actually 2 and 3 minutes. So it is this, which is not good. If this is the best you can squeeze, then 150-ish. No. Yes. And if you can squeeze absolute maximum for a non-tilting train, like beyond limit values, probably do not use, is 155, not 150. Yeah, no. So this might be useful to straighten for such reasons as there's nothing in between. Like there's nothing inside the curve. It's undeveloped. It's the backlot of a. It's backlot of backlot. Maybe this might need to go. This looks like a strip mall building. Okay, move the strip mall building here. Very cheap. I don't know how much it's gonna save, right? I mean, if we're saying the design speed here is like is 210, let's say, then how much does it cost to have to slow down from 210 to how do I get to idle? Not like this. So search. Okay, thankfully it's in a history. So I believe it's 250 and 210 are the limits. So if it is not Control R. Let's say run it. So it is this. And so when we run this, because I don't actually have standard values, I just tell people what values to input each time. What we want is slow pen from, it says 100 to 210. It's 11, it's not actually 11 because it's only in one side, so it's 6. And then the other would be 250 we said, plus, yeah, so this is, so you average them, it's 21 seconds, and you compare with half of just moving from 210 to 250, which is 3, yeah, it's about 30, this saves around 20 seconds. Is it worth it? Maybe. But again, I wouldn't even count it as a deviation, so deviation number 1, deviation number 2 is tunnel in Bridgeport. This is, we're talking billions, probably like 1.5 billion, 2 billion. It's like 4 or 5 kilometers, no tunnel, no station, but the tunnels need to be bigger than you'd expect to have more reasonable speed. Again, it's not like 2 minutes for 2 billion. This is, I don't actually know how much and for how much, because the takings are a significant cost. The right-of-way formation is not going to be that difficult. Some overpasses, but not that many. We're starting here, so it's 101, and we go back here, which is 109. So 8 kilometers, so 200 something. Let's say 300 if I'm underestimating cost of takings a little bit. It should be less. Usually it's no, 300 would be about average for a German high-speed line, but German high-speed lines typically involve tunnels, and this doesn't. But maybe this is more takings than the typical because it's urban. So 300, so you would do this before you would do this, because this is 300 and this gets you a steady 210, whereas what do you need to suffer through if you go through Milford? This is 120, as we said, a bunch of 160, and so I don't actually know if the fourth track here is fully funded, because if it's not, then this also lets you not do that. I think it is already though. So you have all these curves that make it basically what, 100 and if it's again 115, then it's what? And again, let's use high but not insane numbers. They're not going to matter that much in scale. Yeah, it's 190, which is not bad, but then you have this annoying section of about 120 in the middle. So this is a long curve. This looks like about a kilometer. So did I X idle? Yes, I X idle. Let's go back to idle. And not show World War III maps, because this is not the time or place, for the same reason that this is not the time or place for people to send me your hot takes about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There are multiple places on social media for that, ideally in a diary. And we do this, and we want to know, okay, so this is 8 kilometers. This is the same. I don't think this is actually a longer right of way, because you're trading small curves for a big curve, but I don't think this is actually less right. Right? This is about, you can check this. Right? It's a start here. This is on the bypass 7.9, and if we don't take the bypass, but we need to make sure we're following all these curves because they do matter, sadly. Would be nice if they didn't, but Milford is one of these annoying, almost good, but actually not good situation. So instead of 7.9, it's 7. Okay, so we add 900 meters, and we do 7.9. Okay, 130. You need to be at 135 seconds, and then the other possibility is this. So the same, but you need to also take care of the curve. So slope from 120 to 190. What? K, A, B, C. Oh, I forgot now. Like this. 14 seconds plus. It's actually plus, it's negative. But also there needs to be a full kilometer is 120 and 190. So 11 plus 14. So yeah, it's like 25 seconds. So is it okay to spend 300 mil on saving 25 seconds? Yeah, probably. Also, I suspect it's more because I suspect there's like some extra curve shit that I'm missing. If you call it 30, then yeah, it's like, yeah, you spent 300 mil for that. It's fine. This is again 2 for 2 minutes, I believe, or 1.5 for 2 minutes. This I wouldn't count as a deviation. This might be a straightening, just because this specific thing is very tight, and the stuff inside is non-residential. This is bypass. So bypass number 1 here, bypass number 2 here. Probably will not happen because not enough money. Bypass number 3 is Fairfield. This is the main curve that is a problem. It is the curve between, it's just before Fairfield. So this is 1 degree, but this is 2 degrees 15 minutes, which is not the worst or anything, but it's still not great. It's about 140 kilometers, and I use a factor of 2. Remember that the relationship between curve radius times lateral acceleration and speed is literally a square. So if you increase permitted lateral acceleration 10%, you're increasing speed by about 5%. So it matters, but not by that much. So we're talking 140 or a bit more. And if you do it this way, you have a straight away of like 200, 250. Like you can do all of this in 250, is the point. So this saves you money. Sorry, this saves you time for not that much money, because the takings, if you do it this way, you're doing non-residential takings. You're taking Blackstone Grill, Gunsmithing Limited, maybe a bit of the Honda Service Center, very little residential, non-zero, but very little. So that's bypass number 3. How long is that? It is 3 kilometers. That's like what, 100? Yeah, it's 100. This is the long one. It is number 4. It's 16 kilometers. It has easy part. It has parts that are annoying, like how they keep building stuff. It used to be easy to transition, because this is pretty recent, and I think so is this. It used to be that you could transition like this, but now you need to do this and take some more single family here, and also take much of this. I think it's about 40 or 50 residences in all of Norwalk. And then you go through Darien, which is, I think all of Darien is 136. Now Darien, remember we were talking about locations by per capita income, and Darien starred. Darien is very wealthy, which means it's expensive, but it's not infinitely expensive. And even stuff that's going to be very brazen, I think, can be done. Does vertical curve affect speed? Yes, it does, but not on the northeast corridor, because as you mentioned, it is rather flat. It's something that only really matters if you're... and it's also something that doesn't really matter at the speeds we're talking about, which are 200, 210, 250. The point is to do all of this, not to build a high-speed line, but a medium-speed line. Just to make sure that this, like, I think the overall impact of this is going to be something like 15 or 20 minutes. I don't know what the impact of this is going to be. This is several minutes, probably. 16 kilometers with all the takings would be, what, about 1.5? It's not actually that much viaducting, because you just plow through here. Great separation, great separation, great separation, great separation, great separation, but only here are you viaducting, and here you're essentially piggybacking off the I-95 right of way, so the formation is not hard. Great separation, viaduct. Yeah, this is mostly a grade. So yeah, even if it's urban, it's not going to cost excessively, I don't think. So even with expensive takings in an expensive but low density place, I think it's 1.5, and it's going to save a lot of time. Like this is, you can do this you can do this throughout to 250, and the curves currently on this are what? This is a 4-degree curve through South Norwalk. It's this one, I believe. Then more 2 degrees. It kind of like the standard is 2 degrees, and 2 degrees is what? 150, yeah. And that requires you to be very good about zipper elevation already. And they don't do it in 150, they do it for like much less because they don't zipper elevate enough. And they don't permit high cant efficiency on Metro North territory, but that's trivially easy to fix. Like, this is electronics. We're talking about concrete that needs to happen. More like things are even more than 2 degrees. Yeah, this is like 150. This is a mostly 150, 160 line. If you're going on some speed, and then there's this lovely 4 point something. So divided by 4 plus 4 divided by 6. Yeah, this curve radius. This, no. You go with the absolute nuttiest you can. It's 110. More likely 105. So what you're actually comparing this with is, in theory, 16 way to 50. We're gonna look in a minute. So not actually this, because the trains need to transition back. So we do need to slope on it to something like 200 maybe? Or even 160, let's say, around Stanford. It's probably the best you can do if the trains don't stop. So 12, let's say 12, and then at the other end it's not gonna, maybe I think Green's Farms actually is here. This is the curves that start not being very easy to fix. That's, what is it, 127? So 127 is this, let's say. Yeah, that's 170, 180, like that's not that much of it. So slope not from 160 but from 170, let's say. Okay, so we're talking something like, on both sides, something like 20 seconds extra, so it's gonna be something like this-ish, 250, like a little more than 4 minutes. And you do it the current way, you do it the current right of way, you got what? It's 16 kilometers. You take it mostly at 160. So 6 minutes just from the start, and there's a section there that needs to be slowed down to 110. So we're also doing slope and actually, I'm not sure people can see it over my face. Let's do it this way. So plus another 8-ish seconds, plus however long the curve is. This looks like half a kilometer. So plus 8 plus 0.5 divided by this. This is in hours, so we need to make it into seconds. 373. Yeah, this saves 2 minutes. Which is, again, I mean, it's not amazing or anything, but it's pretty good. 2 minutes for like 1.5 again. Also, I suspect more than 2 minutes, especially because it gets you great separation. Like, the cost of not doing this is not zero because you would need to grade separate this junction. So some of the money has to be spent anyway. So might as well spend it here. So that's deviation number 4. Number 5 is the one where the effect is much larger than we think because, or not anything, much larger than you think on the formula, because from Stamford to the points east, and I'm talking about infrastructure, but it's in the service of a timetable, and the point is in the timetable, Stamford to New Haven has 4 tracks, again, except for the section which I keep thinking is fully funded, the 4th track. So commuter trains on the local tracks, intercity trains on the express tracks, and that's it. You don't need to do any kind of complex timetabling. West of Stamford it's different because there's a lot of express running and it's non-negotiable to keep the express running. Here, there are some trains that skip some stops because they can't help themselves, but New Haven line timetable, because it's something I keep not remembering. It's saved in my browser history, but the problem is that sometimes it's old schedules that are saved in the browser history, and the MTA purges old schedules, I guess, so that people don't get confused. And the URLs no longer show you. The URLs for MTA docs look like this at this point, so unless you memorize the numbers, and I don't think I'm that autistic, you will not remember what this means. Except that higher numbers are more recent docs. So I keep complaining, and by keep complaining, we literally wrote it into the ETA Modernizing Commuter Rail Report. There are 16. Actually, this might be one schedule ago. So let's recount. Actually, there are supposed to be 16 trains entering Grand Central from the New Haven line, not including the branches, during the peak hour. So 1, 2, 3. This is a holiday train, so it doesn't count. 3. This is a branch. 4, 5. This is a branch. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 branch. 2, 3 branch. 4, 5. But you see, this ends at 8:56 and starts at 8:02, so we can actually squeeze the 16th, so 7:59. These should be 13 different patterns out of 16. Because, let's see, you have these zone locals from New Rochelle, this, and you can't see it over my face, so I'm going to scroll down for in one sec. And this, so 3 trains like that. This stops at Harlem. This one stops at Harlem. This doesn't, so 2 patterns already. And only 1 repeat. Let's see. This is a fast train. This is a train from South Norwalk that stops in Greenwich. This is a train from South Norwalk that doesn't stop in Greenwich. Are there other trains from South Norwalk? No, there aren't. So yeah, also 2 more trains that don't repeat. This is a local this is a Stamford local. It's the only one during this hour period. This is a Bridgeport train. This is also a Bridgeport train, but they don't make the same stops because this one stops at Stamford and for some reason this one does not. Also Harlem, no Harlem. This is not a Bridgeport train, this is a Fairfield Metro train. Also, it's outside peak hour because 9:02, not 8:56. Yeah, let's keep going on this. This is a Harrison train. This is also a Harrison train. These are a repeated thing. This is also a Harrison train, but it stops at Harlem, and these ones don't. So still only, this is only a second repeat. Greenwich train. Are there other trains that originate in Greenwich? No. Okay, no repeat. Branch we don't count. This is a repeat of something already looked at. New Haven train. A bunch of these actually originate in New Haven. So let's see. This makes 0 stops. These make identical stops. 1525, 1531. You can see they make identical stops. But these are the only 2. There are no other New Haven trains. Like trains from all the way to New Haven. South Norwalk we looked at. Bridgeport we looked at. Harrison we looked at. Branch. This is an express direct from Stamford that terminates at Stamford. Yeah, no. Seriously, 3 repeats, that's all. 13 different patterns for 16 trains. No wonder the schedules are messed up. It's like they're artisanal. Like you need to do 6.5 times the work to write the schedule that you would do if the schedule looked like a local train, and not these 2 express trains, just one of them, i.e. this one, repeating on just a much more frequent schedule than hourly. Yeah. So the point is, the point is you don't need this express running east of Stanford, but you do west of Stanford. So you have three patterns right now, right, which are express commuter, local commuter, and intercity. Or let's call them intercity, let's call them local commuter, express commuter, and intercity to actually have some kind of order, not have the middle one be first, so the middle one is in the middle. And only 4 tracks, not 6, which means that it's actually non-trivial to timetable them, because you want the intercities to go faster than top speed for commuter trains as far as possible. And this means that you need a place to bypass. And so this bypass saves you more time than this, because it lets you also reduce the amount of timetable padding. So this is, I don't think it's negotiable. I mean, we're going to test it with or without. This also absorbs the Coscob Bridge replacement, which I don't think is funded. It's a really good project, but they shouldn't replace in place. They should take these 2 short sharp curves and make them one wide curve. It requires a little bit of takings, but not a lot. In Greenwich, I think. Actually, Portchester might require a bunch to shave this corner. And this is also a really tight curve. This is a really tight curve. It actually saves you a lot of time to be able to take this entire section at 250 kilometers an hour, and not this speed, which is not 250, but rather, what is the speed that you could squeeze out of this? So, we dealt with like the issue of Darien, Norton Heights being a neighborhood of Darien. This is tight, but this is right next to Stanford. It's not a big deal. Old Greenwich, it's 1 degree. Who cares? Nobody would that they have the speed here. So this is 70 miles an hour on something that could be taken at close to 100. Like the curve radii are just insane. Not curve. The speed limits are insanely conservative here, and they could save so much time, much more than through these bypasses we're talking about, which are a couple of minutes each. They could save so much time just through increasing the cant and the allowable cant efficiency to what modern trains can do. The M8s are pretty modern; they can do it. It's just they're just fixated with an experiment from the 50s with atypically soft suspension trains. And then they slow down all the other trains to the speed of these trains that haven't run for decades. It's how bad that is. This should not be 70. There should probably be a long section of with these curve radii, probably 90. And this curve should not be 45. It's again about 100 and something kilometers an hour. So in miles, it's 65. Basically, all of these numbers could be upped by like 20-ish, by 20, 30 miles an hour. Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's terrible. And it's mostly it's mostly things that are electronics, but not even the expensive electronics like signaling or anything like that. The class of track isn't a thing, but you just run a track geometry machine on it, which Metro North just does not know how to do. They finally bought one and they use it at about 1/10 the productivity of everyone else. Yeah, but the point is that here, the curve radii around Greenwich, I keep scrolling the wrong direction, around Greenwich, Coscob, part of Greenwich, Portchester, what are these curve radii? Tightest one is 3 degrees, the rest are 2. So this is something that is currently 70 miles an hour and could be 50, and sometimes 50, and it's something that should be on this geometry probably 90, 95 miles an hour, like 150, 160 kilometers an hour probably. 160 might be aggressive, right? Because it's divide by 2 times 2. It's 150. Again, you can go higher if you were very aggressive about these about cant and cant efficiency, but I'm not 100% sure you can afford to be. 2.2 is again, it's limiting values so much that might not be viable. I'm not sure. If you want to do compromise, which is again the top that's available on a German NBS, then it's this. If you want to make it in miles, it's 95. But again, this could be 250 and not 150 with the bypass. So it's a bypass where, how long is this? you start here, it's 43, kilometer point 43, and here, which is kilometer point 50, 7 kilometers. Again, this is a separate project. 7 kilometers, it's not $1 billion. Maybe it is, but if it is, it's 8 billion, not more than that. It's probably much less. Even with the L's, even with some take-aims, like crossing the highway twice or something like that. That's still, I mean, you're avoiding this really nasty curve, and just by itself, everything else, it saves you about a minute. And again, it saves you more because you're bypassing a genuinely bad curve, which is, what's this curve again? About 120, it's 3 degrees, right? 304, so a little bit worse than that. Yeah, it's about 120. And then, I mean, I guess the 120 is not that big a deal if the ambient speed is 160. Yeah, it's a couple seconds, but it saves you a minute, and in theory it saves you a minute. In practice it saves you more, because this is something that gets the intercities out of the hair of the express commuter trains. It's equally important, I would say, or even more important than the minute for $1 billion. Is there any impact of accelerating and decelerating trains to the optimal speed in all these sections? Probably, but not a very large one. These are electric trains. And the braking rates that we're using are conservative, which means it's entirely electric brakes. So the way that this the way that this works, this code is, I'm slightly derating the trains by making the following assumption on deceleration, which, if you look under the hood, the way that it works is the acceleration function. So this is the acceleration function. A, B, and C are a constant, linear, and quadratic terms, and you can tell that this is quadratic when I say cube, because there's an x on top. So the way to interpret that is the acceleration rate is k divided by your current speed. X in this function is your speed. And so acceleration is equal to power to weight divided by speed, if there's no resistance. And then these are the resistance, and then you do 1 divided by, because what this actually is not your acceleration rate, it's how much time it takes you to accelerate over a given speed. And this is likewise 1 divided by maximum acceleration. And the whole point is that deceleration here is defined as track resistance works in your favor, but you decelerate only as far as you can return electricity to the grid, which is not how trains actually work. The way the trains actually work is usually they can decelerate more powerfully than that. But then that means that there's more energy in the system. It needs to go somewhere. So this is the recuperative braking power. I don't know why this train, the single system, which is by far the highest performance of these, because it's higher initial acceleration, 320 versus 360 is completely unimportant on the lines we're talking about. So 8,000, I guess, or 8,200 did the assumption of symmetry. This is asymmetric. If you do this, the recuperative brake power is much more. I guess they do this because they want to be able to decelerate from much higher speed much more reliably. And so the actual deceleration rate is higher. And I bring all this up because usually if you decelerate like this, it doesn't matter. You're essentially running the motor in reverse. If you do much more than that, you need to do things like, you might need to do actually fancy things with eddy brakes, which is what is required on that line between Frankfurt and Köln that I keep talking about, because in addition to everything, it also has 4% grades, not over little hills, larger increases in elevation, and this means that if the train goes down, it needs to be able to decelerate even while going down a 4% grade, which is non-trivial. The ability of a train with power to weight ratio of 20 to accelerate when it's on a 4% grade is nothing. Like it actually will not be able to accelerate when it starts at a high speed. It doesn't matter if it starts at a high speed if it needs to accelerate up the grade, because the train will lose some speed, but it doesn't matter very much. You start at 300, you end at 280. That's not a big deal. This is why high speed lines have steeper maximum grades than low speed lines. And let's see if it is in my browser history. This is a very old Railfan website called TrainWeb or Railfan Europe, where quite a lot of the... No, this is by Clem Tillier. This is by Baby Clem Tillier. Why is uBlock being annoying? uBlock should stick to making it possible for me to watch. What the fuck is going on with this? Okay. It's possible to just click the virus. Okay. So, yeah, no, for some reason it's just not okay. Do I do Railfan Europe? I think is essentially TGV. I think it's TGV web, but click the logo to enter. Frame set. Okay, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, the point that I was trying to make, and I can't find it, is that there's actually less tunneling, no tunneling between Paris and Lyon on the LGV, whereas there is tunneling on the old line, because the maximum grade on the LGV is 3.5%, and on the old line I think it's 0.8%. Do I know of any writings explaining why they're so conservative? I can tell you why, but I don't know any writing about this. It's because they are... it's a conservative industry, it's not a growth industry. So first of all, it's safety critical, and that leads to more conservatism. Second, it's a declining industry, so there's no such thing as innovation when you keep thinking that your best days were in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and you keep whining about how the federal government hasn't invested in your industry as much as in highways, and you never actually look to other countries and realize that this exact same thing happened in, let's say, France, but in France they managed to use the spending they did have to build the RER and to build the TGV. And part of it is also Americans don't like learning from foreigners, and if it's kind of weird. If it is a growth industry, then Americans will typically not learn because it's good in America. It's the thing with tech. If it's an industry whose heyday was the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, then the same thing. Maybe they learn from maybe Americans learn from Europe or Japan in industries that had their heyday in the 70s, 80s, like the Japan Inc. era. Or maybe it's things that are also very strong in Japan or Europe today, like biotech is very strong in Northern Europe as well as in the United States. But certainly the railway industry won't. They keep looking down on Europe. So between that, the fact that there's so many layers of craft that's accumulated, they don't ever think from first principles. I've actually had this issue with discussing things with American railway engineers on Twitter, where I would say, oh yeah, this is the formula. They don't think of it in terms of a formula like acceleration equals speed squared divided by, lateral acceleration equals speed squared divided by radius. So where you can just tweak the speed and the acceleration and the curve radius and like lateral acceleration, the horizontal plane, and the curve radius based on what you want to do with can't efficiency. they think of it in terms of like tables that make certain assumptions on allowable super elevation and count efficiency. So, and the idea that you could do things differently is a little bit foreign to them because a lot of it is stuff that, I mean, it's the way that they've been taught. Like, they're not masters of the universe, but they get paid well enough to think that their base of knowledge is good. So between that and between the fact that just not growth industries, this leads to a lot of technological conservatism. And again, all of the innovation has been outside America, and Americans don't like learning from abroad, and this is the problem. This is... Yeah, no, the UK is different, partners. Like, the UK does learn from the rest of Europe. The issues with High Speed 2, with their unwillingness to learn, are things where you can't really learn well from continental examples, because the most similar example would be the TGV network, and Paris genuinely has a fuck ton of tracks. Like, a fuck ton of tracks on the approaches as well. I think Gardino is like a 10-track approach or something like that, between the and Transilien. So they, so France is in a privileged position of not needing to care about egress times, and the whole point of High Speed 2 is to build the TGV, but in the United Kingdom. That's the stuff that is most in dialogue with. Maybe a little bit with Germany, but only a little bit. Certainly nothing like Japan, where you hear people talk about how Japan has a very orderly culture, and people there stand in line very neatly, and it would not be replicable in the United Kingdom. And I'm all, what the hell are you guys talking about? The UK has that culture too. You want to see people who can't stand in line for shit? Come to Germany. Germans don't stand in line for shit. It's like Israel. But Americans stand in line pretty well. Brits stand in line very well. Japanese also. So it's... I mean, the things as chiropractors can also help you with, like, just as like untensing your muscles. But yeah, I mean, you want evidence-based medicine. You want science-based medicine. So anyway, it's very conservative, and the biggest speed boost would be for making it less conservative. But that's still, I mean, in theory, a minute, in practice, much more, because it can just not have to care. I mean, sometimes you have to care. I mean, you do have to care, but it's much easier when you have this, in effect, 6-track segment to rearrange things around. And also, I don't know to what extent Portchester is a good express stop. It is a city. But Greenwich is. Greenwich is not a city, but Greenwich has a lot of suburban job sprawl, to the point that I think Greenwich is on the New Haven line, the maybe second or third busiest stop for reverse commutes. Or rather, so the busiest station for reverse commutes, I think, is actually Fordham, but that's the origin. It's people living in the city and commuting to the north. By far, the biggest destination for reverse commutes would be Stamford, and I think Greenwich is actually number 2. There is a lot of reverse commuting to Greenwich. Less than to Stamford, but quite a lot. So I can actually see a situation in which the express commuter trains do Stamford, express to Greenwich, then Portchester, and in this place they're being bypassed by intercities. And then they express, I guess, Portchester to New Rochelle, maybe. And then to the city. And right now they do non-stop, but with so much timetable padding that you actually gain time, even if you make more stops. On top of the fact that the speed limits are very conservative. So anyway, this is number 5, right? We went number 1, Milford, number 2, Bridgeport, which may or may not happen, number 3, Fairfield, number 4, Norwalk, Darien, and Eastern Stanford, number 5, this, and number 6 is shell interlocking, needs to be grade separated. This I don't think is negotiable, just because the flat junction constrains so much. This is something I'm going to need to redraw right now, and unfortunately I'm redrawing it after I split this, because this is wrong and needs to also be changed in number 1. I'm not sure how to do it. So this building, this is something people told me on Tuesday, is landmarked. This entire complex, which means you can't go through unless you're tunneling, and we in this house believe in the non-arboreal origin of money. So what we're going to do is move this to be barely visible going around. Take as much as you need. Landmarking does not mean that you're not allowed to create noise in the back. It just means that you're not allowed to demolish. So you do something like this. This is an S-curve, and that's fine. S-curves are not the end of the world if you have enough time to reverse the curve. Yeah. I mean, Germans have the same problem. Germans are not as solipsistic as Americans, but Germans think very highly of their rail network, and they feel vindicated by the stagnation of TGV ridership. And as a result, they keep saying, "Oh, we don't need 300 kilometers an hour. We're superior to France." And then they keep saying that certain trip times in Germany are impossible, that are literally at that speed. So not speed, literally at that speed and at that that distance between stations are achieved in Japan. I'm talking about Hannover to Bielefeld. I think current plan is something like 31 minutes. The rail fans say it sucks because it can't possibly be done in under 30, and then I'm saying more or less the exact same thing on the Shinkansen between Nagoya and Kyoto would be 27. Or rather, Nagoya to Kyoto is actually longer. So you take the longer thing, you don't do the same average speed because longer, you subtract the difference. I think it's between 100, you go from 115 to 99 kilometers or something like that, and then you subtract that at full speed in the middle, and you get 27, 28 minutes. About real social media is dead at this point, or dying, because Twitter is kind of dying. Here is, and if you think there are text alternatives to Twitter, maybe there's Threads, I'm not sure. Let me check. Threads active users, let me see if we can get anything. Number of Threads users, this is November, okay. It's struggling to retain users. They're saying 33 million active because how many threads are there? Total users. I don't need total users. I need. So part of it is that the growth rate, as you might be able to tell, stalled. But also, how many active users is this? And it's by far the biggest Twitter text alternative. Whereas Blue Sky, people talk about Blue Sky as the alternative. Blue Sky has had flat growth in actual usage in 2 months. Fetty, Mastodon, I think I check daily active users and I get monthly. It is this number, but Mastodon this is not .social, this is, I believe, everything on Mastodon, or maybe everything that federates with .social, which is basically all of the Fediverse. This ends at the beginning of October, but there's been pretty steep decline since. Not steep, like 10% decline. Statistics API. Yeah, so, yeah. So starts at like 1.7 and is down to 1.55 because, I mean, I'm literally seeing all of Israeli Fetty abandon Fetty for Blue Sky, and again, Blue Sky is being abandoned by other people. So social media, so real social media is kind of dying anyway, and yeah. So no, YouTube. Ooh, 5 channels. What do you mean by 5 channels? I thought Iron Transit was 1 channel. Shell, Mothaven, West. Yeah, I'm not talking about Mothaven, I might need to. Mothaven Junction being this one. This is really important for commuter rail, and we don't know how much it's going to cost. I'm guessing it's Herald level, so I don't know, 500, 600. MTA is bad. This should be 300 by comparison with Hunter. We're going to go to Hunter in a bit. This, by the way, you're allowed to demolish these for free. This is the hard one. And we do need to draw some circles to make sure. So I believe it's 140 is what's achievable. So if it is this, we are gonna go a little nuts on curve radius. So we want 730. So first of all, check that this fits. The answer is it does. And then we start being tangent around here. It's at 140, it takes 3 seconds or 4 seconds to reverse the curve. So 140 is about 40 meters per second, so absolute minimum is 120-ish, but let's try to go for broke and do a little more than that. And by go for broke, I mean not use the literal tightest limits on what's it called, the literal tightest limits on this. So if it's something like this, then we want to start here and end up here. And again, 730, because it's an S-curve, I mean, it's kind of pointless if they're not identical radius. So if we do this, this might actually shave the curve here, so it's not good. So we go here a little bit, I guess. Like we can go southwest a bit, and that's gonna be fine. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, so this is viable. This is viable, and I'm just gonna play with this a little bit to make it clear what exact curve is being used. Yeah. So this is 140, and I thought it could be done for 160, but it can't unless you shave a historic building, which you shouldn't. Oh, Japanese language. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I like Reese. And I'm not just saying it because he literally a couple hours ago uploaded a video discussing our commuter rail plan at ETA. The one, this one. Ooh. Yeah, this is funny. Oh, yeah. It's kind of weird because, like, I guess the issue is that there's no political content, or even like ooh, this is so cool content in Japan. If you're talking about, trains between Tokyo, Eki, and Tachikawa. I mean, you can impress people, but it's just how people get to work. They're like very squashed on this very busy railway. Whereas it doesn't have the history punk, I guess, or the history punk value of rural railways, maybe. Yep, I love him. I actually like City Nerd as well. It's called Nerd for Cities. I like his channel. Yeah, this is a problem. Yeah, but anyway, so this is number 6. This is also pretty non-negotiable because the flat junction here murders the ability to timetable. I mean, you can still timetable around it. It's just, remember 16 trains an hour? And it's actually 20 with the branches? Yeah, no, just don't try. And some of them are going to go here and they're reverse. No, that's just too constrained. Don't do it. Yeah, so this I don't think has any right-of-way deviations that are not already in Penn Station access. And I haven't drawn south of New York, and I'm going to do it very quickly. And I'm probably going to get to Philadelphia this video. So let's try to do, maybe kill all of these. And just so I don't get confused, and let's call it New York, Philadelphia. And I'm gonna draw north to south. Usually, I tend to draw New York outward when I do these. So let's try to do New York, and I even just know where to start. So we're starting at 7th Avenue. Okay. And then we're doing the old tunnel, because the whole point of how to use the tunnels when they opened the Hudson Tunnel project is intercities and commuter trains of the Northeast Corridor go in the old tunnel, and then the others, by which I mean Mars and Essex lines, go in the new tunnel. No deviations here. It's called Portal Bridge, and it's supposed to be quad-tracked, but only 2 tracks are currently scheduled for high platforms. So not for high platform, for high bridge. It's a low movable bridge. The other 2 don't need a fixed bridge. You can do something called a mid-level bridge, which is not flush with the water, but would still be moved for really heavy freight or something, of which there's very little, and it's sludge, so it can be timetable to be done at night. That's 800 million. It shouldn't be 800 million. Something like this should be 100 for a high bridge, but high America. I don't know what curve radius this is. I don't think it is fixable. It's also very close to Newark, and I don't think it's possible for trains to skip Newark, so relevant, but not that relevant. So we're going to go here, we're going to go here. This is Hunter. This is not a right-of-way deviation from the Northeast Corridor, but it is a project. Then there is, I think this curve is actually not called Elizabeth, but it's called Elmora. So this is Elizabeth. And this is an S-curve, where the speed limit, I don't know what the speed limit is now. They're in the process of raising it. There used to be something like 50 miles an hour, and it could be 90 miles an hour within right-of-way. It's not a very tight curve. It's just 2 curves that are exactly next to each other, and forever have there been plans to fix this curve to widen the radius and stretch the S. So because of that, they built all of this. When I started looking at this, which was, oh my god, like 13 or 14 years ago, I believe this was the only building here among these. Maybe this existed, I'm not sure. But I think this building was built early teens, maybe? Late 2000s, early teens. Then this. So they actually, and then this, like they are actually infringing on the right-of-way of what they think is the most important curve modification, and what I think is not the most important, but pretty important. Yeah, it's something like 40 seconds to a minute that's being foregone just to this. I mean, you can fix this. It just means you're so this building cost, I believe, 50 million to build. That was about 10 to 15 years ago, so it's going to be more. Actually, it's a little depreciated, but Jersey's not Japan. I mean, buildings rise in value over time. They don't fall in value over time. And then there's this and there's this. Yeah, no. I don't think that is worth all the takings. If it's a minute, maybe, but if it's like more like 20 seconds, no. Then you go. Then this is a straight line. You don't care. And some people are gonna yell at me. Catenary. I know. I'm gonna get to the catenary in a bit. Railway junction, I think, is what it gets at. All of this is a straightaway, and then comes Metro Park. This is annoyingly undulating. I don't know what the curve radius is. I'm just gonna draw it like this, and I'm gonna tell you in advance that Metuchen is especially here, it is too tight, and this needs to be fixed. And I don't know to what extent can be. This is a bunch of multifamily, which can be taken. It's not for free, but it can be taken. Let's say that this is shaved without dropping the S, right? So this is an S, but there is some space here, right? So we're gonna do, let's see what happens if we do this. And we're gonna see in a bit how much of that is necessary. these are single family, but it also means that it's. By the way, if there's enough space between them like there is here, you might actually be able to do construction without disturbing. So essentially, what you do is you build here, and then you just move the trains here in a day when you just build the connection. Likewise, this might actually be more important to fix. So a bunch of this does not look multifamily. There's way too much parking for this to look multifamily. This, right? Because usually multifamily does not look like this. Usually multifamily would not face a parking lot. Yeah, it looks like a strip mall. Hands-on New Jersey physical therapy, Central Jersey cardiology. Yeah, just move these. So if you can just move these for free, and then you have the Amazon Sort Center, yeah, you can do this. If you really need to. You might not, but this is something that is possible. And then, so this is Metuchen. 11 years ago, I called Metuchen Elizabeth's shy, ignored sister. Here I think this curve is pretty wide. In New Brunswick, the issue is that if you're going really quickly, like 300 or something, you're radiating all that noise. This is like the train here, as you may be able to tell as soon as we zoom in. The train would just make too much noise. Like it's above grade here, I might be able to tell. So you could get the curves to be like 360, but no, 300 is a little. This is a weird S-curve that limits speed a little bit, and this is said to be environmentally sensitive, but call me skeptical. But this is something that's well known as like a thing, just because it's a weird curve that I think limits trains to 140 miles an hour, where the catenary, which I will get to, limits to 135, but they're fixing the catenary, but they're only fixing the catenary in New Brunswick to Marsville, or to Trenton, I'm forgetting which of them. At really high close to high speed because Amtrak. But yeah, all of these are really wide curves. This is also pretty wide. I think here you don't need to deviate from right of way. And then it's not exact. Again, much of it is going to be 250 and not 300, unfortunately. Long ago, when I started doing this, I thought that New York to DC would be very easy, but it actually isn't. Because you have all these random bouts of like 200 or 50. This might need to be eased. This is not a loose curve at all. This is not a wide curve. And then let's see if Praga says so in comment. Yeah, it is Elmora. Yeah, it's called Elmora. Yeah, okay, you did say this. Frankfurt. Yep. Spend X billion a year. Probably at no point if you're planning on doing a bypass within like the current life of the program. And also they don't think about this in terms of billions a year, they think of it in terms of a one-time program. Remember, if the program that is currently being built is not going to produce good results, there's not going to be more money. At the end of the day, nobody has any reason to believe Amtrak or the other agencies when they say, look at how great all the state of good repair we did for all this amount of money is. Please give us more. You will not even notice this in shorter trip times because it's going to be bundled into our deterioration in trip times. So this is Frankfurt Junction. Gnarly S-curve. I think the single worst curve south of New York. So when you're fixing the curve, things to be aware of. This is a charter school. So if you're starting to ease it, you're starting here. This is truck repair, so basically free to take. and move. Allegheny iron and metal. So you want to do this and do some takings here. Depending on how many takings you're comfortable doing, I believe you can squeeze 180 kilometers an hour out of this, maybe 190. Crown boiler. These are residential. These are also residential. They're tucked in right next to so much industrial shit that they're not going to be. They're not like high property values or anything. So if you do something like this, I mean, it keeps the S, but the point is that it keeps a wide S. And we're going to use circle tool to play with this in a sec. This is a curve that probably gets eased into, like, instead of several curves in a trench coat, one curve of wider radius. Like, easing a bunch of curves in a trench coat into a curve of wider radius is usually easy on right-of-way, because on average, but this means that the retaining wall has to be moved. Thankfully, this is just parking, but the excavation might be money. I don't think it's a lot of money, but it might be money. Then here, this is zoo, where I think the issue is that it's a flat, it is a flat structure, but I think it's also flat, like non-super elevated track. And then you do this. This is the SEPTA level to go through city center. This is the intercity level. And this is, I think, are we seeing platforms, or are the platforms entirely buried? I can't actually tell. Yeah, these look like platforms. I guess this is the... Right, because it's not here, this is the yard. That explains why I didn't see shit. Yeah, these are the platforms. Yeah, it makes more sense. Because the platforms are famously below grade here. Like below, like covered by the... I don't know what grade, but kind of a dink hole with the train station on top, except that the train station is actually nice. I like Penn Station. So this is New York, Philadelphia. Let's put it in the right place. Would I want to pick a fight with J.R. Tokai? I mean, whatever. Only parts of it. Yeah, the northern part is getting upgraded to 145. Yeah, but the point is that the catenary is upgraded to 160. So the issue with the catenary is it's variable tension, which is not how modern electrification works. But it's how electrification worked in the 1930s. So it sags in, I think, the heat or something. I forget whether it sags in the heat or cold or both. But this also means that it limits trains to, I guess, about 210, 215 kilometers an hour, 135 miles an hour is the speed limit. So they're lifting it by replacing it with constant tension, except they're doing it very slowly and very expensively. And so they're not doing it on the entire line. So let's look at the deviations. I'm not touching Elizabeth because seriously not that important. If it's like if you can do it in 140, 150 kilometers an hour, I mean, yeah, I can do it in 250 instead, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, don't we even have a slope on here on this? No, but we can check, right? So if we do a slope on, in theory, that's what you're saving, but in practice, it's less, because are you doing 250 or are you just doing 200? So what you're actually doing is slope and what? What am I missing? Oh, crap. I see what I did wrong. Yeah, so this is where and the cost of the alternative is not zero because it is close to zero, but yeah, so it saves 14 seconds plus however long it takes to do this, which is what? Not even a kilometer, like 700 meters, yeah, plus 700 meters. Sorry. Plus 6 seconds. Yeah, this is like 20 seconds. Like it's. Is it worth it? Probably, but is it worth the headache? Like, I mean, are you going to spend. How many hundreds of millions of dollars are you willing to spend on 20 seconds? The answer is not many. Moving your retaining wall should be cheap. Okay, I mean, I'm worried about excavation, but yeah, if it's just a retaining wall, then yeah. How much of the focus would be on infrastructure? All of it, or not all of it, nearly all of it. And yes, exactly. That's the point. The point is to do this menu of options to say what's possible. So we are going to look at Almora, where I think we're saving 20-ish minutes, not 20-ish minutes, 20-ish seconds from fixing it, except at pretty high cost. If these 20-ish seconds are for some reason really important, then sure, but I doubt they are. And let's also start looking at Metuchen where there's actually serious deviation from right of way. So, first of all, let's try to at least estimate the existing conditions. Is it a kilometer? Because, okay, so it looks like about a kilometer to me. Yeah, so this is a kilometer. What about the other end of the S? This looks wider than a kilometer. Like 1 point, let's try 1.3 something. Okay, this looks like the curve radius is 1.3, right? Because it works if the circle is at a consistent part, in a consistent track, right? So this is westernmost track. Maybe not. Maybe this is actually tighter than that because it's not consistent. I mean, you can always use the chord method that Ari recommends. And if you use the chord method, where I don't remember the numbers, so I'm going to my shame, look at it. To my shame, I'm going to actually look at Ari's, what's it called? Ari's, I'm missing the word. Spreadsheet. Spreadsheet is right. So Ari's method would be here, the quarterly method. So what you need is to go to the middle of the curve, and in theory, if you have enough resolution, do a line that. So the trick is to do a line that connects the outer track, but and then is tangent to the inner track. But the problem is that it's very easy to make mistakes at that resolution. So we're gonna try to do the outer rail, and so we're gonna do outer track. So we're gonna do outer track to outer track, and then see what happens when we are tangent to something interesting. So let's go here and see if we're tangent to any. Let's go here and try to remember that it's not fully height mapped. Okay, so it's like this. Are we tangent to something interesting? No, we're secant. We've gone too far. So what we do is this, let's say, maybe, if we went too far. Are we tangent? No, we've gone short. This is still short, you can see, but not very much. Okay, this looks like mid line of the track. So in theory that's usable. For some reason this doesn't work because Google does not know how to deal with 3D. Okay, this looks tangent. Okay. Okay. Better service resilience. Oh, I see what you mean. So service resilience is stuff like not having too many cascading delays. So a lot of it would be things like how we can make sure that lines are properly segregated from other lines to make sure that delays on different commuter lines don't hit the intercities unless they're northeast corridor lines, or vice versa. Which is one of the reasons it's so important to do this with shell, because shell reduces, like shell replacement reduces this kind of dependency, and the same is true of Hunter. Anyway, so we do this. This is 416 meters of this chord, and so Ari's thing is about height being 1.435, but it actually should be a lot more than that, because it's it's not curve, it's track gauge plus 3 track centers, so 416, and then we need to figure all of these. So it's 416 versus how much? 14, I guess. Which actually makes sense, right? Because minus track gauge, it's like 13 almost, and then you divide by 3, it means that the track centers are a bit more than 4 meters, which sounds about right. I guess would be 15 feet. Not 15, 14 feet. Whereas exactly 4 meters is in practice 13 feet, yeah. Looks alright. Okay, so chord length is 416, and then we need to see what is, so the base is half of that. So 416 divided by 2 is 208. We need to remember, is anything column B? H divided, so height divided by base. Height is, we said 14.2. Okay, now inside is the arctangent of this, which it's close enough that it should be, so we need to do an inverse somehow. How do we invert? How do we invert? To radians, to rand. No, we need degrees. Nope, degrees, trigonometry. Wait, what? What? What just happened? What just happened? So inside, so we need to do an arctangent. Is this arctangent in radians? Really? Oh, okay, it's an arctangent in radians. Which again is going to be the same number basically, because, yeah. So it is, okay, yeah. Yeah, so the arctangent is essentially going to be the same to the point that we can just treat it as the same. And then what? And then we convert to degrees, I guess. So it means that our degrees would be, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm doing something that I essentially doing twice, right? So it's so it's 3.9 degrees, I guess, and then you do base divided by degrees. You know, I could just do it directly from first principles, and it's going to be easier than this, right? Because the whole point is that if the chord length, if it's 14.2, we said, like you draw a circle, right? The point is if you draw a circle and the chord length is like half the chord is 208, and then the base is 14. Like the point is that the chord is the sine of the angle times the radius, and then this 14.2 number is 1 minus cosine, which is, to an approximation, you can think of it as, so, of sine of x equals x, and cosine, and 1 minus cosine x is equal to x squared divided by 2. What you're actually doing is, and I'm gonna get this wrong, I'm worried, is that, right, so 208 equals sine times radius, and then 14.2 equals 1 minus cos times radius. And then if I square this, this is sine squared times radius squared. 14.2 is 1 minus cos times 1 plus cos. So I divide by this, and I believe I need to divide by 2 again, and this is the radius. Okay. Sorry, this is the way to do it, and now that I know how to do it, I don't need the spreadsheet anymore. So what do we get out of this? I guess we do this, so this is 200 kilometers an hour, unfixed. And I guess this would be about the same, or actually maybe a little tighter. Now what happens if we do mega takings? Can we make this 300 kilometers an hour, which is a little over, which is something like this? The answer is forget about it, unless you're doing a lot more slicing and dicing. Let's make it 250. 250 is, no, 250 is, let's do 2. If you really want, you can do 2.2 or 2.0. 2.2 is, no. Let's do, if it's 2.7, it's 2.3. No, where am I going? No, I'm multiplying instead of dividing, so I need to, right, yeah. So I need to divide by 2. Yeah, let's do 2.4-ish. And see what comes out of that. Yeah, so you can fix Metatron. It requires doing more takings than I thought. On this side, this looks about right. These are short chakras. This looks doable. Yeah. And then what about this one? So this curve might actually not be that bad, you know. Like this S curve looks annoying, but you can fix it. Yeah, this is still a fix, but it's a fix that's not much out of the right of way. Yeah. So let's actually not do takings for the sake of taking. So let's do this. Follow this curve, and this is 250. And then here we go here and make sure it's 250. And again, this is annoying takings, but not that expensive, I don't think. And there is a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, which is 250 is a much better speed than 200. So we go here, here, and here. Okay. We do not need to save the circle. And then I guess the problem is that the platforms might need to be moved a little bit, and that's annoying. And this is fine, yeah. So how much taking is this? Because I actually counted in Connecticut, which is how I could tell it's 136 in Darien. Here it's what? Maybe these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? maybe 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 houses. 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, it looks like 20-ish houses and early learning center is the problem. But, I mean, it's an early learning center, it's already near the train. So it is money, it's not that much money. And yeah, and what's the benefit of doing all of this? Again, at the very minimum, like, yeah, the thing is, these are long curves. It's like 3 kilometers. Like, just the 3 kilometers is not nothing. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's not nothing either. Yeah, 10 seconds, ignoring acceleration and deceleration time, which you shouldn't. If it's a bunch of more of these things, and yeah, you just go from. Then it's like more like 7 and not 3 kilometers. Plus, again, the acceleration time. Because are you really slowing yourself to 200 for all this just for this? So the slow penalty is not going to be that big of a deal. It's 8 seconds. It's not real 8 seconds because you're probably going to go 300 beyond that, so it's going to be. Not 250, 300. And then this should not be a large number. Yeah, so you let this go to 200, then you're spending half of this and half of this, so it's about 40, so 20 seconds, and you're let it be 250, you're doing half of this, so instead of 20 it's 5, yeah, so 15 seconds plus something like 7 kilometers, or more, like, say 8. Yeah, so this is 40 seconds. Not nothing, but the cost is not that high. It requires some right-of-way deviations, but oddly enough, the deviations might be sufficient that it's like 3 or 4 kilometers of essentially working at grade. So and you don't need to, and none of it is especially complex for civils because you're not moving, like maybe you're doing a little bit here, but I don't think you need to move any of the support columns for the freeway. You're doing some takings, but you're not doing insane takings. And so you're straightening the S a little bit. The takings are going to be below tens of millions, 20-ish maybe, 30, something like that. And then the civils are going to be more over this length, 200 max, right? So, yeah, you should spend 250, 300 on saving half a minute. South of New York on the margin, I think. Not the lowest hanging fruit or anything. High. And then, yeah, what about these curves? This is the curve that I already drew is a little bit deviant. Let's actually use the ARI method to do this. Now that I actually know how the formula works, I don't need to look it up. It's actually much faster for me. So we need to go within the curve. And this might be a short enough curve that it is going to be too difficult to do an entirely in curve. So like this or something like that. Yeah, so you see that we're not even going to be able to hit the entire thing. So let's go here and maybe be tangent to this outer track. So 304, and then we're doing 2 track centers. So 304, and we're comparing this with 8 point something. Yeah, which makes sense. It's like probably 8 point. I mean, so 304, and remember, divide by 2 square, divide by divide by the short number, which is, I guess, 8, and divide by 2. So this is what we're getting, and this is, just divide, multiply by 2 back, yeah, it's 190 kilometers an hour. Not the worst, but you want to be faster. Can we make it 300? Is always the question. The point is to move around circles for 300 here. If not, like 270 or something. Yeah. The answer is most likely going to be no, it's too hard, but... So, this is the 300 circle. This, and try to keep... I guess I'm not doing a wandering eye challenge, so it's kind of unclear where my eyes are, but my eyes are here. Okay, what is this? This is a truck. This is a warehouse. Aspen Environmental Service, Roman Building Products. Yeah, this is takings, but it is not onerous takings. This is again takings involving people with MBAs who will go for money, and it's not a lot of money. Yeah, so you do this to make it 300. Where else do we need to deviate from right? Here maybe, but it looks so short it might not matter. Like, none of these curves is that wide unless it's specifically being widened. Like, the standards are always like a 1 degree curve or something. It's just that often it doesn't matter. Like here, clearly the curve is tighter than this, but at the same time you do this and then you just follow the circle. And it's Lumberman Associates. Yeah, you do it's takings, but it's not substantial takings. So you do this as a 300 zone. And yeah, this might be, actually this might not be, this is very short. And finally, yeah, there's Marsville curve, which is easable. Because look what's inside the right line. So yeah, this is not a good curve, but it's literally undeveloped land inside of it, with like some other tracks. So you go here, and yeah, this requires deviations from the right of way, but not the deviations that cost much. It's like a couple million, like low tens of millions. So all of this combined is, maybe all of these combined are high tens of millions. And yeah, I'm not saying you're going 300 into downtown Philadelphia, although note that this curve might actually be doable, right? Like, I mean, like maybe? I can't tell. I mean, like this might be too hard if, I mean, you're dealing with the Harriman Historic District, or like with actually populated areas, it starts getting more difficult. This is not difficult. So actually denote that we're following this chord. But yeah, you're doing 300 at least through Bristol. And then, no, Bristol, we're going right past Bristol, we're going here, that's the point of this deviation. Maybe through Cornsville lines, and then this is where it starts getting too annoying, when you're flush with a freeway, where there's multifamily. That gets to be like 250 territory, or less, like 220 or something, but at this point you're starting to get close to Philly. And then comes the actually low-hanging fruit, because it's so annoying, which is Frankfurt Junction, which is here. This is not, like, this is a 250 curve. Forget about it. So let's do a 180 curve, which is 50 meters, and let's also be the absolute nuts that we can be on radius, which is 1.1 something. So it's something like this. This is what it takes to make this even 180. to actually remember the chord pretty well. And then here on this side, again, we're not touching the charter school. We're doing this short straight segment and back here. This is 180. This is what it takes. Here it's moving the aforementioned retaining wall. I don't actually know what the speed here is, but I can check because we have the Amtrak chart. Okay. This may or may not work. And I need Amtrak timetable because SEPTA specifically does not have Northeast Corridor or anything on it because they are bad people. We don't need this, don't need this, don't need this anymore. This does not tell you the curve radii is the annoying thing. What is annoying is that the others do. This doesn't. This does give you the speeds though. So we want the speed that is allowed as of 2021, and we want the internet to actually be fast. Like I want a lot of things I can't get. The internet to be faster. I actually don't think I can reliably download the PDF. Probably also have it with Google Docs. Oh, maybe it does work, okay. So we'll do it this way and this will open more reliably. Sending files, by the way, with Google Docs is really weird. Like Google Docs kind of wants you to use its own internal sharing system and not send the physical file, which isn't very workable when you're not sure if you'll be online. Like if I travel and I work from a train, the train does not, in my experience, ever have reliable Wi-Fi. Now, I don't know if Pony is here. If Pony is here, then I will say that I have had good experience with Czech trains, but German trains, nope. Eurostar, nope. Danish trains, nope. American trains, lol, no. Okay, this is actually working. Oh, okay. We want to see New York to Philadelphia. So this roughly goes north to south. So this page intentionally left blank, thank you. If it says intentionally left blank, is it really blank? Sorry if I'm being velociraptor on stream, on video. Metro North Railroad, Rhinecliff. Wait. How much of it is just not Northeast Corridor? Because I'm seeing a lot of Empire. Okay, this is Northeast Corridor. Okay, so Hunter, yep. Mile points, and we are going to care about the speed limit around Frankfurt Junction. I'm asserting it could be turned into 180-ish kilometers an hour. And they're not telling me that. Oh, this is speeds. Okay. So this is main. So these are speeds on main line. But this is south of Philly. So do we have speeds on main line north of Philly? Maximum speeds on turnouts. Okay. Oh yeah, we do. So let's see. Current speeds, and we want train types A and B. A is Acela, B is regional, C is, I think, commuter. Where they're not letting you run with as much cant efficiency for silly reasons. Okay. Elmora is 80 right now. So it used to be 55, but they actually made it 80, and I believe they can make it 90 miles an hour. And then I guess the curves currently are about 160 kilometers an hour here and here, and it should be, depending on how much demolition you're willing to do, about 250. Which I guess saves a lot more than 30 seconds if you're going from 160 not from 200. 135, it's catenary limit. It'll be more when they fix the catenary. Drops to 125 in Mars. And then what is the limit around? Do they just not have a limit? Yeah, it looks like they don't have a limit around Frankfurt just because everything else is limited. It's like 60 miles an hour, it looks like. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but it's not a big dock, it's like a couple miles. Yeah, I mean, not all trains are like that. I mean, again, in Czech I've had good experience, but, I mean, not in Germany or the United States. Yeah, I can see that. It's kind of weird, like in Czechia the train wasn't in any less rural environment than in Germany, and yet the Wi-Fi quality is so much worse as soon as we hit the border. Yeah, so it's like this. Frankfurt, what's the mile point of this? So, Frankfurt is 130 something kilometers, so it should be about 100, it'd be about something like 80, mile point 81, 82. Curve west of mile point 81, yeah. 80, curve east of shore is 60. This is shore, right? Then Lehigh, East Limit Mantua, something like this, and then Zoo is 30. By the way, Zoo, just to showcase something. Zoo is a bad curve, but let's not turn it into like a streetcar curve or Chicago L curve. This is Zoo. It's about 300 something. Not easy. Each track follows a different trajectory, so it's a little hard to use the entire edify. I mean, the ARI method, the problem is that because of that we need to be more precise with the gauge. So we need to actually do something like this and hope for the best. Okay. So we want to do something like this maybe, and then it's, I guess, tangent. Maybe not quite tangent. Go a little longer, but only a little. So it's not like 60. Square divided by gauge divided by 2. Yeah, this looks like 313. There's a big error bar because small changes might compound. This is why I prefer doing it on multiple tracks. So it's 300 something. If it's this, then cant this shit. You have space to cant. And have good cant efficiency. Congratulations, it's 90 kilometers an hour, not 50. And this is actually the most important thing. Hey, Kaleidocean. And if it is 90 on this curve, if it's like 370, there you go. 11, then it's, if it is 370 and not 311, then it's almost 100. Yeah, so this curve is done at 90 and not 50. And just to put things in perspective, just doing it for this section is a noticeable increase in speed. Yeah, this is 22 seconds ignoring acceleration time, and you cannot ignore acceleration time because like currently what's going on is that this entire thing this entire section is being taken at 30 miles an hour. So right now this entire section is taken at 2.8 kilometers is like 3 minutes 20, and yeah, there's acceleration time, but it's trivial. 250. And where do they say it becomes a connection to the subway track just north and 36th Street? So I guess this connection is where they go. No, that's terrible. That's goddamn terrible. Right, 33rd. Which one is 36? This. So connection, and so it's not actually this, it's even worse because there's a lot of 10 mile an hour running, and again, it doesn't really matter what the acceleration times are when it's this short. Yeah, if like this, it's 1.8 and then another one. Yeah, it's 1.8 at 16 kilometers an hour. Yeah, no, plus 1 divided by 50 times 60 times 60. Yeah, it's 6 minutes just to get, or 8 minutes rather, to get from here to here, which is insane. What it should be is 90 kilometers an hour around this curve. It's again completely fine given curve radius. And yeah, you need to count the curve, but trains are not going to stop there. Here, let's actually make sure that we're doing the curve that actually hits the tracks, the station tracks, and not this one, but this one. At this point, you're already going far enough out of the station that you're allowed to cant. So let's look at this tracks curve. Why? Just because it's the one I happen to be on. Yeah, this is a tight curve. This is a really tight curve. It's 50 meters, so something like this? No. Right, because we need to do this. Square divided by 2. Yeah, this is a really tight curve. So 217-ish. Actually makes sense for for a station terminal. It's not a terminal, but you know what I mean. A major station. If anything, actually, you probably can't count because it's a turnout, but you can choose. But you have space. Like there's tons of space here, so you can rebuild the turnout to have a larger radius if you need to, which you absolutely should. So this curve, what it does is it limits you to 70 something. So if you're trying to do a 70 kilometers an hour radius, I forget the total length you have from the turnout. I want to say about 60 or 70 meters. So something like this to this would need to be about this or a little longer. The point is this should be about 70 and not 16. So up to maybe here, let's say half a kilometer of 70. Maybe we need to keep the 70 here. Let's check these curves and not the elevator tracks, but the ones that we're keeping with. So these are it's these tracks, I guess. And I guess this is a double trackway, which is nice because it means that I don't need to make guesses about the exact inside to outside, because we can do this and it should be, this is actually a pretty wide thing, right? Because it's 1.435 and then like a very generous 5 meter track center. So okay, we're in the middle of this curve. Here, and then what do we need to do to get back while being tangent? This is not tangent. this starts being tangent, so like this. Yeah, so something like this. It's about 130 meters. So 130 divided by 2 square divide by, what are we dividing by again? 5 point something. No, 6 point something. So like 6.2, I think. And then you divide again by 2. Yeah, 340. Again, not the best, but it's the same as zoo. It's like 90 kilometers an hour. So the point is that the actual speed zones that they should have are 70 to about 0.7 kilometers out of the station, and then 90 to about 2.8. And again, we're basically ignoring acceleration time for a bunch of reasons. Most important, if the speed limits here are fixed, then the acceleration time can be done anywhere. So remember, it's 8 minutes on the current system, and what it should be is two minutes. 6 minutes that are saved entirely through fixing some turnouts, which cost a couple $100K each. Canting the curves, not touching the right-of-way, canting the curve here. Maybe running a track geometry machine if the track class is too bad for this, which I doubt. Yeah, this is basically free, and you're saving 6 minutes entirely within the, not just within the city limits of Philadelphia, but within the last 2 miles into Philadelphia 30th Street Station. It's always these things where the speeds matter. Like we saw, we talk about all these 160 to 200 or 250 fixes where you're saving 1 minute over a bunch of kilometers, and here you're saving 6 over and here you're saving 6 over. Actually, if it's not 10 miles an hour, if it's actually 30, then you're saving less than 6. Well, not much less than 6, right? Because this is 2 minutes, and if for the last 2-ish miles, then you're doing. Okay, it's not actually 2, right? Because it's you're doing 30. Okay. No, you're doing less than. Okay, if there's no 10 miles an hour, if it's just 30, then it's not as insane. It's like you're saving 90 seconds. Wait, that's not right. Yeah, about that. 90 seconds as opposed to. Why is this saying? Oh, because it's the connecting track. This is a diverging track, and if you're taking this straight, then maybe it's 30. Yeah. Okay, so it's not as insane, but it is like still a minute and a half for nothing. Yeah, it's not 6 minutes. It's again, it looks like more than a minute and a half. Yeah. So with the switches, the point is that the switches are not on the curve. So what you do is you switch here, and you do like the interlocking is not the problem, because you just use higher speed switches. And again, look, there's tons of space. Like these are track centers. These are like 5-meter track centers. The Shinkansen track centers are 4.3, with slightly wider trains. In Germany, I think the rule is 4 up to 160 or up to 200 kilometers an hour. More if it's faster than that, but it's obviously not. I think S-Bahn trains are like 3.7 or something like that, or 3.8. So by this point, the curve itself is not taken on any kind of interlocking. So, like you see, yeah, this track might interlock, but the intercities don't use that. And also, this is literally leading to nowhere, so, okay, count this, it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, so again, it's not 6 minutes, it's more like, it's 90 seconds, I guess, if you're not doing the 10 miles an hour shit here, except on the connecting track. But still, I mean, it's a lot of time is being saved for nothing. Yeah, if you're actually crawling, then it's just not just doing 30 miles an hour. That's even more insane. So the point is that you're saving this 90 seconds, then you're going here and you're accelerating quickly into something like 160 or 180. You keep it 180 up until here, and then you accelerate to 200 something. I guess as far as you can get while staying on this curve without blowing the right of way too much. You can take these. You can't take these, is the issue. And not, maybe I sound like I'm lamenting it. I'm not lamenting it. Like, I mean, like the takings budget is not infinite, and like the benefits of takings are not infinite either. So we do this, and see whether we can even round the entire curve while staying without being. No, yeah, we can. Very difficult. So we do this. And again, we want to stay within the curve. And we're not, the thing is we're tangent to this one, not this one. So this is 294, and we're doing this maybe? 294, and this is 9 meters, because 9 minus 1.45, no, 1.43 is 7 point, wait, or the track center is really that narrow, because that would suck. And we said 260, I believe? Yeah, okay. Actually, I lost the count in that, right? Sorry. Unless someone can remind me in chat what the chord length was. I'm going to try it again. Start this. It looks like it's 260, but it also looks like it doesn't hit as much. Yeah, I guess the issue is it's a short curve. So this looks like 260, but it doesn't go as far as here. It's really weird. We go here, maybe. It's 245 now, and this is to the center. Okay, let's just try this. 245 and this is about 6.6. Okay. So 245 square divided by 6.6 divided by 2. Yeah, it looks like a reasonable radius. And then this is about 160, 170. Yeah, so this might be straightened a little bit within right of way, but only a little bit. Can we even make it to 10 or something? This, again, is one of these. So much within the right of way, I'm not worried. Right, so this is about the real curve radius. And if we're straightening, let's see, let's live large. Yeah, I mean, it's a short enough curve that if you're taking these, then you can straighten it. I guess the limit then would be the S-curve. Like there would become an S-curve. But yeah, I can do that. It's fine. It's like 2000-ish, I guess. If it's a little bit less than 2000, like 1800 or something, then yeah, I can make it 210. If you're a little more aggressive, it's like 220-ish, I guess. Yeah. And it's like 180 and then 220 and then 300. Yeah. You can do that. That's fine. And that just gives you such a massive boost to the speed. And yeah, so this is to Philadelphia. I don't think I have time tonight to go as far as Washington. There wouldn't be any deviations here, I don't think. You could try to do something very quick, right? Like, as far as Baltimore, I guess, so it would be Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Baltimore, Washington. I'm actually going to do Baltimore, Washington first, which is entirely me depicting the Great Circle Curve. Baltimore to Washington is easier to explain because it's one of these really, I don't think they need to deviate from right of way, or if they do, it's in such empty places that it doesn't matter. So what they need to do is, okay, you start from, this is a curve. This is a really nasty tunnel. Thankfully, it's being bypassed in a project that is way too expensive, but has been funded just now. They even named a rail tunnel that hasn't even opened after Frederick Douglass as a kind of commitment that it will open. The thing is that it's kind of fascinating project of a rail tunnel that was great when it cost $1 billion and is not great now that it's $6 billion, but they kept the commitment. Which is kind of weird because they didn't really do any early commitment to it or anything. It was just kind of informally perceived as the most important thing, even as other fruit, haizu. I don't know if they became lower hanging, but this fruit became much higher hanging, but they kept with it. So this is something where there might be a good case for straightening, just because look at what's in there. It's like a little bit of a hill that you'd need to climb. Like, I mean, that's all a big deal. And then it's like this. And note, by the way, that we're no longer really talking about really expensive things like Frankfurt Junction. And it is a difference between New York to Washington and New York to Boston. New York to Washington, yeah, requires some bypasses, but nothing massive, and usually it's like short, sharp curves, like what we just saw in the Philly suburbs, where because these are short curves, if you're actually saying, okay, we're straightening that curve, you're not actually, you're going outside right of way, but barely, and because you're going only barely outside right of way, you're going to end up not having a lot of land to take, which means that it's still, you're still going to need to spend the money on, building the actual tracks and structures and everything, but that's, again, it's like 30, it's very elevated, like 60 million a kilometer. And yeah, this is the line, Baltimore, Washington. Again, we're drawing away from New York always. And again, I don't think you need right-of-way deviations here. There's nothing here that's especially problematic, I don't think. And we can actually check this. This is, we don't care about e-speeds because we only care about, right now, Philly to Washington. Yeah, these are the list of places, and for some reason the speeds are not listed with the mile points, with the exact mile points. So main line to Washington. Yeah, look, this is a fast line. I mean, America Fast is fast. This is the 30-mile-an-hour tunnel through Baltimore. And yeah, let's just draw Philly to Baltimore and be done. It will be, I thought it was going to be a 3-hour stream, but I thought it was going to be a 2-hour stream, but it's a 3-hour stream. And yeah, so Philly, start here, go here. Again, you do not need to do 10 miles an hour on these curves. You need to slow down a little bit, but a little bit is the point. Not here. I keep thinking that this is, this is the right way, right? Because this is the former R2, because the R numbers increased clockwise from R1, R2, R3. And R2 was the one that went to Wilmington. From time to time, there are ideas about instead going via the airport as the right of way. So you go via the airport and then you build around here, or you build around, or you elevate these tracks. Maybe. I can see both options, but this one requires less construction. And this is a 4-track line, and this means that there's no, and because these are not the sort of suburbs that really could make use of an express train, by which I mean the frequency would suck. And for Wilmington, you can just use the intercity as an express. So you do this. Also, I think this right away has great crossings, like the alternative one. Nope, it's not actually straight. Like this, and then this. Marcus Hook. I don't know. I mean, if this curve needs modification, then it's then what needs to go inside of it? Like, it doesn't look trivially easy, but I mean, what is inside here? Maybe this shed. Like, it's like the plants are mostly not like this plant, but it's not inside the curve. It's next to the tangent. This might be annoying just because it's between highway and water nowadays. You can bypass Wilmington, or you can not bypass Wilmington. Let's go with not bypassing Wilmington, because it's cheaper not to bypass Wilmington. And then these are annoying curves. They can be canted, but not infinitely. But I'm guessing every train stops here. It doesn't actually make sense to skip Wellington because of these curves, if this is the right, if this is the alignment. If you go around here, or if you trash industrial land zone, land use in Edgemore, or even to go like this with like a much wider curve, yeah, sure. But this is not a place where you're ever. This is not a place where you're ever getting any speed out of not stopping, out of passing the station without stopping. You either go around the station. It's the same thing with Milford. Like with Milford, I mean, no, I mean, Milford you would not stop at the station. But the point is, it's like with Milford, it's a bypass in its current option. So it's like this, like this. There are some things that you can do, like around Elkton. Like maybe you can try to ease the curve by going around Elkton, but like the inside of the curve is undeveloped here. And same as it's true here. Like, I mean, this is, and if you need to do some takings, just do some takings here. This is not, like, this is a handful of houses. And actually counted how many residences would need to be taken in Connecticut, and it's, I think, like 300 in all of Connecticut. No, in all of Connecticut, west of New Haven, east of New Haven might be a bit more. I mean, maybe not a bit more than 300, like a bit extra on top of the 300. There's this. I used to draw this with a bypass elevated on US 40. This has to be a deviation, most likely. This is a really annoying section where for some reason, what they're doing with the bridge replacement is, instead of doing a 4-track bridge replacement, they're doing 2-track decks. So there's going to be a flying junction here and here, so that instead of being on the middle tracks, in the middle tracks is elsewhere on the line, the Acela would be on one side of this bridge, and I've tried to understand why, and the reasons are something about freight connections here, except that there's very little freight, so it can run, but during off-peak times, and for some reason they're not doing that. They're just moving it to less busy times, as opposed to spending, I think, something like $2 billion on a bridge. And then whatever this curve, I don't think it's fixable, but NBD. And then, yeah, these are the curves where it starts becoming completely unfixable because of how much development there is around them. But they're not obscenely tight curves. I'm not drawing right-of-way deviations, I'm drawing somewhat lazily. Again, curves, but very close to Baltimore. They matter, but not infinitely. This is called the Union Tunnel, and I don't quite get why they're very I think the speed limit is 45 miles an hour, and I don't think it needs to be. We do this, yeah. With respect to, yeah, exactly. I think people overrate airport connections. There's also this weird two-step on climate where people say, well, for climate, we can connect with the airport so that the airport does not need to have short flights for connection. It could have more slots for long-distance flights. But I mean, if the limiting factor is long-distance flights, they emit more than short-distance flights. It's like a line that was very popular in the 2000s before flight chain. I don't even know to what extent the US is flight chain, the way parts of Europe do. Yeah, so like this curve, for example, what is this? And this is a curve that's sufficiently long that this should not be too inaccurate. Okay, it's not going to be it's not a 2 kilometer curve. Maybe is it a 1 degree curve? You know, it might actually be a 1 degree curve. No, it's tighter than that. It's not much tighter. Okay, this might actually be exactly a 1 degree curve, and if it's an exactly 1 degree curve, then no, it's a 2 degree curve. Then we're talking 210 kilometers an hour. Again, you'd rather go 300, but 200 is not that end of the world. 210 is not that end of the world. Yeah, so this is, like, what's the actual speed right now? I mean, if this were Europe, it would just be the actual speed, but I try to dial down the Euro English when I talk about American things. So, river and point. Okay, so the curve is 90. Not the curve, the bridge, the movable bridge that I trashed is 90. First curve north of Grace. Curve north of Bush. Bush, Guntown. They're doing this. They really call themselves Autobahn. Back River? Huh. Maybe it's this. Like, maybe like, I mean, you can absolutely believe that they're not actually running at very low speed on this. Curve mile point 94. What's mile point 94? Yeah, it's basically at that. Wait, so Union tunnels are here, so why is the mile point here? I'm not doing right of way deviations. Mile point 85, so that would be 9 miles out of this, so... Reverse curves at Bay, Point and Bay. Sig Bridge, is it this one? Maybe. Middle River, I guess. Martin State Airport, what is this? Yeah, I think this is 100, like, this looks like it would be something like 100. It doesn't look like they would be insane about it. River and Point, Point and Bay. North Portal, yeah, North Portal's Union Tunnel would be something like this, so about 60, and then Bay around here. Maybe it's even 125, which makes kind of sense given that. Yeah. Yeah, so here I guess maybe you're not increasing speed as much because, yeah, you're doing 210, today it's probably like 180 or 200, so whatever. And then, but again, the average speed here is okay. The problem is always the little things where near the stations they're just randomly wasting time. Limits of Prince interlocking, it's 90. Wilmington, okay, and then curve mile point 27. Curve north of Wilmington. And then curve mile point 30 and 31. I mean, the mile points start diverging from what I'm saying here, but maybe this one. Yeah, all of these, like, today they go, like, way over 200. Like 210, 215, like this. Uh, Curve north of Elkton and south of Elkton would be this and this. And it's just straight away the entire way. Yeah, you can squeeze more speed out of it within right of way. You can try to ease if you really want and do like 270 or something instead of 210. But again, remember, the lowest hanging fruit is always to speed up the last couple of minutes into each station. And then, yeah, pretty fast from Baltimore to Washington. And apparently no sharp restrictions into Washington Union Station, which is good. Yeah, so this is probably what would be needed. Again, you can do more things. You can do some right-of-way deviations here. I don't think they matter very much. Maybe a little bit, but only a little bit. Yeah, this is, you're mostly just doing 250 all the way. It's, I mean, like an hour 30 New York to DC looks possibly too aggressive, but in 2 hours doesn't looks much. 2 hours looks almost trivial when you think like this, and it's currently about 200 and like 2 hours 50. So yeah, I'm going to stop here and I can take questions if people have any. And then we can break. Where does this curve radius? Is this one of these many 1 degree curves or something? No, it's much tighter than this. So confused. It's a weird suburban thing where there are actually a bunch of houses that are pretty close to each other here. Getting to 2 on the south end is fine, yeah. Fewer here at least, so if there's a curve easement, then this would be hit much harder than this. Yeah, like here, I don't think you need to take anything here, whereas here, these might be. But like the speed limits, if you try to do something, if you try to be aggressive, it's 216. 2.2 I don't think is viable. Maybe it is actually. If you're trying to do 250, again we need like 2 kilometer point something radius. That's when when the curves are not very short, like this one happens. Like you need to do a lot of taking here, which I don't think is worth it. Like here, whatever, might even be yeah. This is like the actual radius here. Like some of the curves are just very wide. Charlestown, yes. This there's nothing there. Elkton, it's here. Yeah, you would need to deviate, but this was the baseline. Yeah, the going to New Haven is nuts. Like, I mean, should be about 2 hours-ish, maybe even a little less. New York to Boston. I mean, yeah, you need to spend billions of dollars on these bypasses, but it's not many bypasses, right? It's again 5 for the long one, New Haven to Kingston. I think probably about, I don't know, 300-ish for Milford. Not sure about Fairfield, but probably about 100. Bridgeport, if you do it, it's probably 1.5. Darien also, and then one for Portchester and Greenwich, and then something like 300, 400 for Shaw. And again, it's money, but it's not extreme amounts of money, even if you do the tunnel in Bridgeport, which is, I think, the highest hanging of the 6 fruit. It's what, it's not like 1 point something, 1.5, so about 4 so about 4-ish combined. Maybe a bit less than 4, and then 300, 100, 400, so it's like 4.5. Everything must have been combined and it's probably getting you from something like an hour 5 to about 45 minutes. Zero concrete? Sorry, 105 would be about zero concrete, 103 that is about 43, 44. Yeah, you spend $5 billion, like 20 minutes came out of here. So you know about a lot of. So why is one mock to another priced? Good question. So you build so the point about doing it as an integrated timed transfer system is that you build very obtrusive infrastructure. Just look how cavalier they talk about takings, but you build it only where necessary. You don't randomly replace bridges. You don't randomly triple track long sections where 2 tracks with some timetabling, with some timetabling precision and timed overtakes could do the job. You just to put things in perspective, like they're currently planning on doing $400 million for a 3rd track on the Worcester line, which is entirely unnecessary. Like we thought that we could be able to shrink. We thought that we could shrink the length of the required triple track on the Worcester line from the current plan, which is to do triple track from the junction with I-95 all the way almost to Framingham, like toward Natick. And we thought we could localize it to Wellesley, but it turns out you don't need any of it, and the current budget for this, I have no idea why, is about 400. I mean, it's 400 including fixing the stations, but it's either 3 or 4 of them, so it's still not like 300-ish. And the actual requirement is 0. So the issue with like this flexibility infrastructure is that it's built without any regard for what timetable you would run. It's actually treated as kind of weird. Wait, you can only build the infrastructure to run this specific timetable. What if the timetable needs to change? Well, don't change your timetable. Know in advance what timetables you want to run. This should be known years in advance of the minute. Like, it doesn't actually take infinite amount of work to timetable trains that run a complex system. Yeah, spend that on string and wire because that has immense benefit. Raise the platforms of the MBTA, New Jersey Transit, SEPTA. Get EMUs instead of diesel locomotives for MARC, which de-electrified for some stupid reason. Yeah, and fix the catenary, make it constant touch on the entire system. I have no idea why it's costing so much. It's like I was told it's related to the signals, but then why are you bundling all of that? And also importantly, especially south of New Brunswick, middle tracks only get used by intercity trains, so what do you mean signaling? Like the blocks are enough. And yeah, so so I guess it's on the order of 10 here. The tunnel in Baltimore is really expensive, but it's already paid for. I don't think Elizabeth is worth it. Maybe it is, but I doubt it. This, a little bit, but this is like what again? It's kind of capped at about 100 or 200 million. It stops being worth it. Frankfurt Junction is probably the big item. Physical infrastructure wise, even that's not a lot. I mean, yeah, it's an urban. It's urban construction with viaducts and some takings, but the takings are on demands, and it's like at the end of the day about a mile. So it's like, this is, what is it, 150, 200? And yeah, what else? The curve, like a bunch of curve fixes. There are a couple hundred mil total. Catenary, because you're not changing the substations. The catenary is like what, 300 something kilometers. That's just, without the substations. That's like, even when it's 4-track, it's like what, a billion, if that. Yeah, that's how you spent 13 point something billion. Like, this is probably, I mean, with tweaks. I mean, we're checking to make sure that nothing there is too much fluff, or that we're not missing anything big. But that's the basic recipe. Yeah, Elizabeth. So when you mean within the work approach, I mean, Hunter's close to non-negotiable. To the point that if there's no Hunter, then the correct way to run the route and valley line is to run purely on this track and then force a transfer. Which is really annoying, but it, like, the flat junction, like, you should just not have flat junctions. And yeah, Elizabeth, I don't think Elizabeth is very low on this, but yeah, Frankfurt Junction is that. Bear in mind, fixing Philly mostly means this, and it costs 0. Because you keep the curves, you just run a track geometry machine to cap them. And I guess maybe you fix some switches, but that's, again, 6 figures per switch. They're not tens of switches. There's like high single digits, probably, maybe teens, to the north. Alright, thanks. Yeah, exactly, and they don't fix the mergers because they don't get what they're doing with the process. Like, the process is just, it looks so arbitrary. They're not allowed to do benefit cost analysis. Is what I've been told. Which, yeah, no, just no. Yeah. So anyway, this is roughly what it's like. I mean, it's highly compromised because they spent a lot of the money on other things, but it's still viable. Yeah, get to New York to DC in sub 2 hours, New York to Boston in sub 2 hours. I mean, not an hour 30 or anything like that, but an hour 50 is fine. Yeah, I don't even think it's a few nights. Oh, yeah, it's a few, I mean, yeah, probably it's about a few nights, but it's not even a few nights of outages because they don't run these commuter trains overnight. Anyway, yeah, but they don't do BCAs in America. Certainly not in the Northeast corridor. But anyway, thank you. And now we need to actually timetable all of this and look at all the different options, like the yes, no's and the various bypasses, like the kind of next branch of fruit, if it's not optimized. Thank you, and I'll see you again maybe on Tuesday, maybe in a week. So, ciao, ciao.